So good evening everyone. So myself Himanshu Khatri and we'll be beginning with the quick revision material for modern Indian history. Right, so so basically it is going to be roughly around 5 sessions, and therefore in the 5 sessions we are going to try to cover the whole of modern Indian history, right? Right. So the focus will be to have uh, inclination towards prelims, right, and to provide overview along with some of the key tenets or key principles which are required, in the prelims examination, right. So therefore, the first that we are going to begin with is advent of Europeans, right. Then we'll be covering the later Mughals and the decline of the Mughal Empire, right. So इस तरीके से हम cover करेंगे, बाकी बाद में और देखते हैं जैसे topics आते हैं. Right. So first of all, when we talk about advent of Europeans, so some basic understanding to begin with. Why did the Europeans they come to India? So therefore, in 1453, the Ottoman Empire it blockaded the traditional trade routes to the east, and therefore there was a shortage of the Indian goods, right? Chinese goods, Indonesian goods, example spices, right? Finished cotton, and all of these things, right? So therefore, as a result, there was a search for northwest trade route to the east, and therefore the voyages of discovery they took place in 16th century. Ultimately, it was Vasco da Gama, right, funded by the Portuguese, who in 1498 was able to reach Calicut, right? So that's how the Portuguese they were the first ones to land, right? So if we talk about the Portuguese. So what are the key highlights of the Portuguese? So therefore, it was, for example, UPSC at times ask about personalities, right? So the first personality becomes important. Apart from that, the key personality becomes important, right? And at times the last, but the last one is less important. The first one, and during the time period of the personality, जहाँ पे major change हुआ, that becomes the more important ones, right? So therefore, we have a QRM material also, right, which is also being updated. Right, so therefore updated version will also be available to you. So therefore it was Almeida, right, who was the first Portuguese viceroy who arrived, as the key person. What do you mean by viceroy? Viceroy is like the CEO in charge of the Portuguese government company, right. So therefore this also becomes an element of prelims, that which of the companies was a private company, which of the company was a government company. So therefore the Portugal company was a government company. Initially the French company was a private company, later on it was nationalized. So therefore it also became later on a government company, right. And what is the key hallmark of the Portuguese under this person Almeida, right? So basically it is blue water policy. Now, what do you mean by blue water policy? Blue water policy is very simple. When the Portuguese they came to India, they realized that the territorial Indian powers they are much powerful, and the Portuguese they will not be able to deal with them, right? So therefore, the Portuguese navy was relatively better as compared to the Indian rulers at that point of time. So therefore, the blue water policy entailed that we are going to dominate the waters. That is the international waters. Why? Because it is going to lead to domination of international trade of India. And we are also going to obviously focus on the domination of the coastal areas. So that here in the coastal areas, the factories, etc., they can be set up, right? So therefore, then comes the issue of the factories. So therefore, in the QRM also and otherwise also, these elements are mentioned that okay, how gradually in different parts. Initially, they landed in South India, that is Calicut. But gradually they set up Surat as their main base, right? So that was done by the Portuguese. So blue water policy it also entails something called Carta system. Right. So therefore, in the Carta system, it is like taking a toll tax. We will allow only those ships to pass who are ready to pay us some money by purchasing a license. That is, take a license, pay a fee, and only then we'll allow you to move. Right. So therefore, the Carta system was introduced. The second of the viceroy among the Portuguese is basically Albuquerque. And it was during the time period of Albuquerque that there was a slight shift from the blue water policy, as in 1510, Goa was taken over, right? 1510, Goa was taken over. Now, here, for example, if you look at, Can I move it with 2 fingers? Right. So, like if you look at the map, and otherwise, if you do some interconnection, right, UPSC can create confusion that okay, Goa was taken over from Mughals, or Goa was taken over from Kingdom of Bijapur, or Goa was taken over from Marathas, right? So therefore, there the basic common sense principle will apply that it is the first Mughal emperor was from Mughal ruler was Babur, and he was there from 1526 to 1530. So therefore, Goa cannot be taken from the Mughals, right? Otherwise, also the coastal areas of West India, they came under the Mughal domination during the time period of Akbar, who was there from 1556 till 1605, right? So therefore, this is how some kind of elimination kind of technique can also be there, right? So therefore, this is how you deal with the Portuguese. It is said that after Albuquerque, the other Portuguese viceroys, they were not very efficient or very powerful. And then when we discuss the rise of the East India Company, there we come across the Battle of Salavi, right, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, right? So whereby in 1612 in Surat, the Portuguese, they were defeated. And then again in 1620, so that we'll discuss when we come towards, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Apart from this, there are some other territories also which are under the control of the Portuguese. For example, Goa was taken over in 1510. Then Bombay was taken over in 1534 from Sultan of Gujarat, right? And Dadra and Nagar Haveli, right? It was taken over in 1783. The small element there is that the Marathas, they destroyed a Portuguese ship, and later on as a compensation, this small territory of Dadra and Nagar Haveli was given. Why? Because Marathas are tired at this point of time after the first Anglo-Maratha war of 1775 to 1782. So therefore, they do not want escalation of conflict at this particular point of time. So therefore, overall it was Goa, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu. In these three territories, the Portuguese were there. Bombay was also taken over in 1534 along with Diu and Daman and Diu. But Bombay, as we know, that it was taken in dowry by King Charles II in 1661, right? So therefore, ultimately it was in 1961 that India was able to get the territories of Goa, Daman and Diu, and Dadra and Nagar Haveli from the Portuguese, right? So therefore, that is a brief on the Portuguese. Apart from that, if we talk about the Dutch, right? So broad theme about the Dutch is that it was the Dutch actually. Dutch, they are called Netherlands, right? So Dutch, they were superior in navy as compared to the British initially. Why? Because Netherlands means the land, it is under the water, right? So therefore, in the times when agrarian economies are there, how a country which is Netherlands is able to become a colonial power, right? The key to that is that they were able to focus on building a superior navy. In fact, the English East India Company, which is set up on 31st of December 1600, it was to counter the Dutch competition, right? So therefore, after the Portuguese and the Spanish, the next powers that rise are the Dutch and the British, right? So therefore, Dutch, so they came to India and around 1600, just let me check the year, they came around 1695 or something. By 1695 they set up this thing in Kochi, right? So anyways, so they came and the center, they established trading centers were Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu, right? Masulipatnam, which is also known by the name much. In fact, I have this one slide. It is added here or not. So there is a map which is there of इसमें शायद से नहीं आया, ठीक है, वो है, वो मैंने अलग से निकाला था. So therefore there is this slide also whereby these different powers, they at what point of time they came and उस तरीके से, ठीक है ना. So primary issue is that by 1600, so initially these people they came, the British, the Portuguese came. Then when the Dutch came, so there was a fight between the Dutch and the British with respect to India and Portuguese, with respect to India and Indonesia, right? So therefore, initially the Portuguese were removed by the Dutch from Sri Lanka, right? Then they were removed from Indonesia also, that is from islands of Java, Sumatra also by the Dutch. And therefore, such a situation is there that by the time period of what you call as 1650s, the situation is that the competition is largely between the British and Dutch, and roughly for 2 decades, right? These people they fought, that is from 1640s to 1657, and the Britishers were able to defeat the Dutch in India, whereas the Dutch were able to have an upper hand in what you call as Indonesia, and ultimately there was a compromise that the Dutch, they will not attack the Britishers in India, and the Britishers, they will not target the Dutch in Indonesia, right? So therefore this kind of a compromise, it is coming around the time period of what you call as 1650s, right? So that is what is there, and specifically, for example, 1695 bola maine, it was 1595 when the Dutch, they arrived in India, right? And in 1602, for example, a charter was issued by the Dutch government for the Dutch East India Company to do trade, right? They established their trading depots or factories in Gujarat, Cochin, Nagapatnam, Masulipatam, and even in Bengal, Bihar, Agra. So therefore these factories, they would have to be, Rutland. There is no other option, right? So ऐसा है. ठीक है ना. Battle of Swali was there when we talk about that. Anyways, right? So the Danes, with respect to the Danes, they are not very important. They had a very short presence in India. So therefore, primarily because they are all going to come via the Cape of Good Hope. So therefore, their presence is there in Tamil Nadu. That is Tranquebar. Right, there is a place 1620. Then Sirampore in West Bengal, they set up in 1755. Right, Sirampore, it became like a safe haven for the Christian missionaries. Right, so that was but they are not very very important because ultimately it is the British, right, who are able to establish their domination over the international trade of India. Then the next, they are the British, which are the more important ones. So with respect to British, it is, we all know that it is on 31st of December 1600 that a royal charter it is brought, and it was in the royal charter that different powers were given, right? So therefore UPSC can ask a question with respect to that what was the nature of this East India Company. So this East India Company was a joint stock company, right? It was one of the first joint stock company. Technically it was the fourth joint stock company. What do you mean by joint stock company? It simply means that there can be shareholders, and those shareholders may not have managerial decision making powers, right? So therefore, like you can purchase shares of Reliance, but you do not decide that what Reliance will be doing, right? So therefore, that kind of a scenario. Why? Because huge amount of money was needed to counter the Dutch competition. That's why it was the fourth such joint stock company. Apart from that, UPSC can ask prelims questions with respect to what were the powers which are granted under the Royal Charter of 1600, right? So therefore, those powers, they become important. So one was, for example, they got monopoly over the British trade with East Indies, right? So students, they may have confusion that monopoly was over what. So A, it was over British trade. So therefore, when the French are trading with India, they are not breaking the Royal Charter, because the Britishers, they do not have any jurisdiction on what the French can do and what the French cannot do, right? East Indies, UPSC can think that, okay, does the student know that how do you define East Indies? So therefore, all the territory on the right hand side of Cape of Good Hope, that is South Africa, it is called as East Indies, right? The charter was given for how many years? It was given for a period of 15 years, right? Later on, the parliament is going to renew it for 20 years each, but initially it was for 15 years. That is one of the element, right? Then the company, if the company wants to buy the Indian goods, if the company wants to buy the Chinese goods, then it has to purchase it with the help of forex. What was the forex at that particular point of time? It was gold, right? Gold, silver, which you call bullion also, right? So therefore, under the charter, the company was allowed to take out gold from England to the east, so that they are able to purchase the goods from the east, right? Then, because during the time period of Portuguese, the Portuguese, they acted like goons, right? They acted as pirates, right? So therefore, the seas, there is no UNCLOS at that point of time. So therefore, the seas or the oceans, they are not safe. As a result, the Dutch as well as the British and others, their companies, they were given right to wage war. After the war, maybe a treaty is to be signed. So therefore, right to sign treaties. Then when you reach India, maybe you are required to sign a treaty with the Indian ruler for acquisition of some land or for acquisition of some liberal trading rights, right? So therefore, right to sign treaties was also given to this English East India Company, and it would be with other companies also, right? Apart from that, so therefore after signing of treaty, there can be acquisition of some small territory. So therefore right to acquire territory was also there. And then right to administer those territories, right? Administration, this territory is very small territory, for example, Bombay, or for example, Madras, Patnam, right? So these are very small territories, right? So therefore that kind of thing it used to be there, right? Apart from that, the management of the company as per the charter was with court of directors, right? So UPSC can confuse you with respect to court of directors or board of control, right? So board of control, it is a government entity. We'll discuss about it later. Court of directors is nothing but board of directors of the East India Company. It is the top decision making body of the company, right? It used to have 24 members, and those members, they were called, they are like 24 members plus there was a governor and a deputy governor, right? So therefore this kind of scenario it is there. What was the goal of the charter? The goal of the charter was not empire building by the East India Company. The goal of the charter was international trade, right? So therefore the company was not built for empire building, right? So with respect to goal, with respect to these elements of the charter, prelims mein a question can be generated, right? Apart from that, the first voyage, it was done in which year? First voyage by East India Company is done in which year? Obviously 1601. Why? Because the date of formation of the company is 31st of December, right? So even if they do a voyage the next day, it will be 1601, right? So therefore it was 1601 that the first voyage was done by the East India Company. Apart from that, in 1609, James I was the king and he made the charter permanent. Permanent means for an indefinite time period, the charter was renewed. That was done in 1609 by King James I. Right? Later on, the charters, they still came because the charters, they were required to allow the company to carry gold outside and all of that. But it was ultimately the parliament, when the parliament started changing the duration of the charters, when the charter acts they come, and the parliament will be renewing the charters for 20 years each. For example, Charter Act of 1793 onwards, they start renewing the charter for 20 years each. Otherwise, King James I is making the monopoly rights over the British trade with East Indies as for indefinite period from 1609 onwards, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Okay. Then in 1600, then if you talk about the rise of the East India Company versus the British, so if I again go back to my QRM, so fine, there is a mention about, for example, the beginning of the trade. So beginning of the trade wise, these people, they sent Captain Hawkins, right? So Captain Hawkins was, a confusion can be created between Captain Hawkins and Sir Thomas Roe, right? Captain Hawkins was also accepted in the Jahangir's court. Thomas Roe was also accepted in the Jahangir's court. However, the difference was that Captain Hawkins was simply an employee of the East India Company, right? And he was the first one, right, to seek some kind of a legal relationship with some kind of patronage or some kind of positives from the Mughal emperor. However, when he tried to do that, then because of the Portuguese lobby, the Mughals, they had to remove him from the court, right? And that is happening around the time period of 1608, and that is how the Britishers, they realized that until unless we fight a naval battle with the Portuguese, we defeat them militarily, till that point of time, we will not be able to have a base in India, right? So therefore, a major battle took place in 1612, which you call as Battle of Swali or Suwali, whereby the Portuguese were strongly defeated by the Britishers. And therefore, this is how in 1612 the Surat factory it is established, right? Now looking at the maps here becomes important. For example, if you look at the maps which are there, which we give either as part of the QRM or as part of in general, right? So there, if you try to locate Surat, so very nearby Surat, there are territories mentioned. You would not even have to move your eyes, like Broch or Bharuch, right? So therefore, UPSC asked a question whereby they said that in the first quarter of the 1600s, the Britishers, they set up their factories in which of the following areas, right? Now it is well known that it is primarily the western part where the focus was. Yes, in 1611 they set up a factory in South India also, in I think in Masulipatam if I'm correct, but in 1612 the major information is Surat. The students who are in the habit of looking at the maps, they will be able to locate Bhuj also. So therefore not just Surat but in some nearby areas also the factories were established. The right option there was Bhuj or Bharuch, right? So therefore that's how the things are, right? So then another issue that comes into operation with respect to British, it is of Royal Farman. So therefore once in 1612 the Britishers are able to defeat the Portuguese, then they are able to extract a royal farman, right? So therefore this royal farman basically was given by Jahangir. Jahangir was there from 1605 to 1627, and this particular farman, it said what? That we give you right to establish factories on the west coast, right? What is the meaning of the term factory? It basically means warehouse, right? So therefore 1612 the first royal farman it comes, which is in favor of the East India Company. But East India Company wants more, which brings us to the confusion of Captain Hawkins versus Mr. Thomas Roe. So Thomas Roe was like British ambassador to Jahangir Court, right? He was a much senior person. He is a person who is of the British state. He is not a person of the company, right? And he is accepted as a resident or agent or ambassador by Jahangir. For 3 years he stays from 1615 to 1618, and he is able to extract a royal farman, right? UPSC will not ask that how he was able to extract, but I will tell you, they became drinking partners, right? So therefore red wine, and so accordingly ultimately he was able to convince Jahangir, and he was able to extract what? Right to establish factories in the whole of Mughal Empire and liberal trading rights. Liberal trading rights would mean you can use multiple ports, you can pay lower duties. Duty free trade comes in later. This is lower duties and more number of ports, ease of doing business, that kind of scenario it is there. Only there is one book that is among the other books, there is Shekhar Bandyopadhyay which mentions that this angered the Portuguese to a great extent, and in 1620 there was a last and final battle between the Portuguese and the British, where the Portuguese were defeated. I've tried to search internet also, there also you are not able to find out the name of this particular battle, but fine, chalo, in 1620. So therefore we see that 1510 was Goa, right? And 1510 onwards, Goa became the headquarters of the Portuguese trade with the whole of East Indies, right? Then by 1620, or you fine if you want to stick with 1612, so there the Britishers are subjugating the Portuguese, right? So therefore this is how it is said that roughly for 100 years the India's international trade was dominated by the Portuguese, right? So therefore this is how the things they are moving on, right? Then the next element that comes into operation about the British is, so 1633 factories were set up at Balasore and Harihar in Odisha. So fine, factory establishment is one of the feature, and I think UPSC has asked it recently, so I don't think it will be a, usually UPSC knows that now everyone is focusing on factories, right? So fine, it's okay, right? So then the next element that comes into operation, it is of the French, but if we want to talk about slightly more about the Portuguese, so therefore it was in 1661 that there was a treaty between the British and the Portuguese, right? And as per this particular treaty, it was a marriage treaty, right? So therefore in those times marital alliances used to take place, right? And as per that treaty, there was a agreement that the Britishers will give protection to the Portuguese in India, 1661. In return, they got in dowry, they got Bombay, right? So therefore students may wonder, sir, why the Portuguese are not 100% removed from India by the Britishers? The reason is the marital alliance of 1661 between King Charles II and a princess of Portuguese, right? So मुझे नाम नहीं पता, ठीक है, ठीक है. So therefore, that is the treaty. And that's how the Portuguese are able to stay put in Goa, Daman and Diu, and Dadra and Nagar Haveli will come later, 1783. right? Which we take in 1961 ultimately, right? So therefore that is how the things are. In 1668, at just 10 pounds per annum, the East India Company was given this annual rent of just 10 pounds per annum. East India Company was given Bombay by King Charles II, right? So therefore this is how the British state, that is the crown, assisted the East India Company in developing their base in India, right? Because it is like literally for free you are giving this, right? So therefore we can say that by mid of 17th century, Portuguese are limited to Goa, Daman and Diu, right? So therefore that is what is happening, right? With respect to Dutch, अगर हम थोड़ा सा बात करें, ठीक है? तो with respect to Dutch, so by 1623 Dutch removed Portuguese and British from Indonesia. By 1658 Dutch removed Portuguese from Sri Lanka, right? Those are facts. Factual information will keep on coming like this, but ultimately it is by 1667 that a compromise is there. 1667 compromise is there between the British and the Dutch, that Indonesia you dominate, India we will dominate, right? And as per that compromise, the British are going to have a minor presence, right? So it is something like this, right? You stand like this, right? And they stand like this, right? So therefore this is what is happening. So what is this? So basically it is hedging. The Dutch are going to have major presence in Indonesia, but they are going to have a minor presence in India, right? For example, by 1669 they set up a base in Cochin. Cochin, it is in Kerala, right? The Britishers, they will have a minor presence in Southeast Asia in the form of being present in Malaya and Singapore, right? So Britishers, they are primarily present in India, minor presence in Southeast Asia. Dutch, primarily present in Southeast Asia, minor presence in India, right? Very interestingly, it was Martanda Varma. Martanda Varma, 1729 to 1758, a very strong ruler of Travancore, who in 1741 removed the Dutch from Cochin, right? And from other small factories, by 1795, the Dutch were totally removed by the British, right? So therefore important years with respect to Dutch become 1669 they have a strong presence in Cochin. 1741 removed by Indian strong naval power called Travancore under Martanda Varma. 1741, and by 1795 totally removed from India by the British, right? Why? Because industrial revolution has begun in 1750, so therefore gradually the Britishers, they are rising. By 1763 the Britishers are also able to win the 7-year global war, right? So therefore they are rising as a superpower, so obviously they are going to take care. However, they were challenged by the French, right? But before we come to the French, I think there can be a question which can get generated from the issue of presidencies, right? So therefore if you talk about the presidencies, so presidency wise there were 3 presidencies of the British, that is M, B, C, Madras, Bombay and Calcutta, right? So always try to remember it in this order because that is also the order of their establishment. What is presidency? Presidency, to begin with, it is simply a regional headquarter of the company, right? So therefore Madras presidency is going to take care of the southern trade of India, international trade of India. Bombay, it is going to take care of the western trade, and Calcutta is going to take care of the eastern trade, right? So if you would like to note down the years of establishment of presidency, so 1652 is Madras presidency, 1687 is Bombay presidency, and 1699 is Calcutta presidency. 1699 is Calcutta presidency, right? A small doubt can also be created with respect to this. For example, so therefore in the presidency, when do you give the status of presidency? So for example, in the case of Madras, the first factory in south was Masulipatam. These small facts are there, सब कुछ तो dictate नहीं करा सकते. But the point is कि the Madras, it began with what you call as purchase of Madras Patnam in 1639. So in 1639, a small village, Madras Patnam, was purchased by the Britishers. That means the trade would have begun in Madras in earlier, and the status of presidency is given later. So when do you give status of presidency? When significant amount of trade has begun from that particular area, and significant number of warehouses have been set up in that particular area. At that point of time, you basically say that this is my headquarter, right? So there is a difference in establishment of factory. समझ रहे हो prelims का question क्या बनता है? There is a difference in establishment of a factory in Madras and giving status of presidency to Madras. right? So there also tiny confusion can be created with respect to years, and a prelims question can be generated there, right? So therefore M comma B comma C. Also these presidencies, they are basically, these have huge amount of invested money in the form of goods they have purchased. So therefore for the protection of these goods, they used to build a fort, right? So therefore, example, the Calcutta presidency is also known as Fort Williams presidency, right? Similarly, Madras presidency is also known as Fort St. George presidency. By the way, there was another fort, Fort St. David. It was in Cuddalore, right? It was, but Cuddalore is part of Madras presidency. So there were two forts in Madras, right? Fort St. David and Fort St. George. Fort St. George was the bigger fort, right? तो ये फोर्ट के नाम से भी प्रेसिडेंसीज बनती हैं, right? So that is one of the aspects with respect to presidencies, right? So ये है. बाकी आपको कंफ्यूजन एक और भी किया जा सकता है. एक तो है फोर्ट विलियम्स, right? Now Fort Williams was set up in 1700. लिखो लिखो. Fort Williams was set up in 1700. Fort Williams College was set up in 1800. Fort Williams College was set up in 1800, right? So therefore one is a fort, another is a college, right? And gap of 100 years is there, right? So UPSC, this used to be Labasna for 6 years, from 1800 till 1806, it was Labasna, right? For training of civil servants, right? Wellesley, 1798-1805 was the person who set up Fort Williams College, right? So therefore, wherever any this kind of confusion is getting generated, there lies a UPSC prelims question, right? So these are small things which are of importance, right? So that is what is there. Then next element that will come into operation we talk about is what you call as the French, right? So French, they arrived in India in 1667. It was primarily what you call as their primary base was basically, obviously this information is there, that in which year they set a factory at what particular place, right? So Masulipatam 1669, right? So therefore Pondicherry was set up in 1673, right? So that's how the things are going on. They are present in West Bengal, they are present in Chandarnagar, Balasore, Kasim Bazar. Kasim Bazar mein everyone was present because it was a big area, like you have Sadar Bazar, so Kasim Bazar mein everyone had a factory, right? So they are present there. Baki primary, their base was Pondicherry, and 1674 was the year in which Pondicherry was established as their primary base, right? So in the case of the Britishers, in the case of the Portuguese, their primary base is Goa. In the case of the British, their primary base is three bases: Madras, Bombay, Calcutta. And here the French, they have one primary base, that is Pondicherry, right? So therefore that's how things are. Then we move on towards, we will discuss the rise of the East India Company. They will talk about the Carnatic Wars, etc. But this is like the introduction aspect which is there. UPSC has asked questions in the past regarding the goods which were traded, right? So therefore these goods would usually involve spices, right? Spices from South India. Similarly, in the case of West Bengal, it used to be finished cotton, right? And sandalwood, cardamom, black pepper, right? So therefore these are the different products which were traded, right? So okay. Next we come towards the timeline of later Mughals, right? So if we discuss later Mughals, so later Mughals are Mughals which come after Aurangzeb, right? Aurangzeb was there from 1658 to 1707. So if we talk about Bahadur Shah, so therefore what are the key hallmarks or the key things which take place during the time period of Bahadur Shah? So first of all, he followed what you call as pacifist policy, right? That is one of the aspect, right? So what is pacifist policy? Pacifying someone is like calming down tensions, right? So basically he realized that the Mughals are no more powerful because of continuous warfare of Aurangzeb. A lot of military resources, a lot of economic resources have been drained during the 50 years tenure of Aurangzeb, right? That is 1658 to 1707, roughly 50 years, right? So therefore, with respect to the enemies of the Mughals or those who are rebelling against the Mughals, he tried to follow a pacifist policy. Now, this pacifist policy was not all Udarwadi policy, right? Let's be very frank. Some of the books, they do mention that it is only, Udarwadi policy. There was brain behind it. Brain was divide and rule, right? Brain was divide and rule. For example, he released Maratha Prince Shahuji Maharaj, 1949, that is 1719 to 1749, right? And after he was released, so therefore there was a civil war between Tarabai and Shahu, right? So therefore this is how the enemies of the Mughals, for example Marathas, they are entering into a civil war. Why? Because here a pacifist policy has been followed, right? So therefore one element is, for example, Shahuji Maharaj, he is released. Apart from that, right, so therefore he followed this kind of a policy. This pacifist policy, it continued. For example, in 1708, in 1707, in 1707, he promised Guru Gobind Singh Ji that he is ready to give, he is ready to accept the Anandpur as of the Sikh, right? But then again, you see, so therefore, again, in 1708, however, in a conspiracy, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was murdered. Although he was able to kill his assassins, right? But because of wounds that he encountered, ultimately he succumbed to his injuries. So therefore, this pacifist policy, one of the aspect was what you call as being tolerant. That is one aspect. Second aspect is also element of divide and rule, right? So therefore, it is basically part of diplomacy, right? So therefore, this is how it is there. He also made peace with Rajputs and others. So that is automatically part of the pacifist policy. The next that we have is, so Bahadur Shah 0712, then comes Jahandar Shah 1213, that is 1712 to 1713, right? So what is the key hallmark of Jahandar Shah? So Jahandar Shah was able to come to power with the help of powerful nobles. Their name was Zulfikar Khan, right? So therefore he followed some tolerant policies under the influence of Zulfikar Khan. For example, jizya was abolished. Jizya had been introduced by Aurangzeb. But the key hallmark of Jahandar Shah is basically that he introduced Ijardari system. Originally, Ijardari system was introduced by Shah Jahan, right? But the books, they only talk about Ijardari system being introduced by Jahandar Shah. What is the reason? Reason is very, very simple. When you auction the right to collect revenue from a particular area, that auction, it is for a particular time period and it is not forever, right? So therefore, someone introduces Ijardari, Ijardari gets applied, Ijardari gets over. Again, the Zamindars will start again collecting the land revenue, right? So therefore, Ijardari system was introduced, and Ijardari system was introduced by him in Punjab, right? Ijardari system, it is introduced by Punjab. And what is the reason there? There we'll talk about later on. So for example, when he introduced the Ijardari system, so that was done with respect to playing divide and rule policy between the Sikhs. So it was a business opportunity for the Khatri traders, right? It was a business opportunity for the Khatri traders. So Ijardari system was introduced by, if you want to note down somewhere, you can write down, introduced by Shah Jahan, right? It grew during the time period of Aurangzeb. Grew during the time period of Aurangzeb, and then it was introduced in Punjab and Bengal by Jahandar Shah, right? Later on, it was introduced in Awadh and Hyderabad also, can find. He introduced Ijardari in Khalisa lands also. So Khalisa lands means from where the land revenue goes to the Mughal emperor, right? So therefore, Ijardari in Punjab, Bengal by Jahandar Shah, in Khalisa lands by Farooq Siyar, 1713-19, right? So therefore, from here, a question can be generated that who was the first one to introduce Ijardari even in Khalisa lands, right? So therefore, it was the first, right? Very similar to Ijardari system is the farming system of 1772 of Warren Hastings, right? There also the right to collect land revenue was auctioned to the highest bidder. So therefore, one name is Ijardari system, another name is what you call as farming system of 1772, right? So that is how it is. Then if we talk about, so Jahandar Shah, well, Jahandar Shah came to power by murdering father of Farooq Siyar. So Farooq Siyar came to power by murdering Jahandar Shah, right? So Jahandar Shah was held by Zulfikar Khan, Farooq Siyar was held by Sayyid brothers, right? So Sayyid brothers, they helped him, and ultimately, what is the key hallmark of Farooq Siyar? So during the time period of Farooq Siyar, if we so during the time period of Farooq Siyar, one element is that it is Farooq Siyar 1713 to 1719. So therefore, there was factionalism or there was animosity with Sayyid brothers. Although he came to power, but he was removed by the Sayyid brothers in 1719. Sayyid brothers, they had allied with the Marathas. Second element is Banda Bahadur. Banda Bahadur was the leader of the Sikh from 1708 till 1715. So Banda Bahadur was defeated and executed during the time period of Farooq Siyar. Then third element, Farooq Siyar in 1717 gave a royal farman to the English East India Company. Right? As per this royal farman, right to duty-free trade was there. Right to use royal mint was there. Right to rent 38 villages around Calcutta. Right? So therefore, these are the three key things which are taking place during the time period of Farooq Siyar 1319. Another element is there, the Bangash Pathans. They are able to set up Farooqabad. They are able to set up Farooqabad. They name Farooqabad in his name to symbolically suggest that if you allow us to rule, to have a dynastic rule in Farooqabad, east of Delhi, then we have no problem in recognizing the Mughal emperor's sovereignty. So therefore, as a symbolic gesture, the Bangash Pathans, they named their rebel state of Farooqabad as Farooqabad. Right? So therefore, these are the key things which are taking place during his time period. Then the next that you have is Muhammad Shah Rangila. So he used to spend his time not in administration, right? He was devoid from any focus on administration, and it is during his time that proper decline of the Mughals it happened. So it is a long tenure, 1719 to 1748. So he is not a powerful leader, but still he is able to stay in power. What is the reason? Reason is, for example, it is for the powerful positions that fighting takes place. The major was, if the Mughal emperor is ready to stay neutral, then the different groups, that is Irani group, Turani group, Hindustani group, Deccani group, Hindu group, right? Because he is going to act totally neutral, so therefore they can fight among each other and they can decide that who is victorious one, and accordingly best mansabs and best jagirs will be given by Muhammad Shah Rangila without any question. So therefore, since he is neutral, he is not harming anyone, so therefore he is able to stay there for a relatively longer period of time, right? So therefore that is what is happening. If you notice the years of the successor states, right? So therefore, Murshid Quli Khan, right, who was there from 1717 to 1727, he established a successor state in Bengal. So therefore, that is happening more or less around his time. That is, Murshid Quli Khan will become governor of Bengal in 1717, but consolidation is taking place during the time period of Muhammad Shah Rangila. Then if you talk about Nizam, right, so Nizam is 1724 till 1748. So therefore, again, Hyderabad is also established as a successor state during his time period. Then you have Sadat Khan, right, who is there from 1722 till 1740 in Awadh, right? So therefore, Bengal, Awadh, and then Hyderabad, right? So therefore, BAH, these are the three successor states, right? So this is first one, this is second one, and this is like the third one. So BAH. So they are getting established during his time period. And in that particular sense, we can say that significant decline is taking place of the authority of the Mughal emperor during his time period. In fact, another element that comes into operation is, for example, from 1738 till 1740, Nadir Shah is invading, whereby the Battle of Karnal took place in 1739, which was a primary major battle, and for a period of 60 days, there was no Mughal emperor. For a period of 60 days, Nadir Shah was the emperor, right? So therefore, symbolically, this is what is happening, right? He went back, Nadir Shah went back with great loot, 100 crore rupees worth of wealth. He took away the peacock throne and a lot of jewelry, etc. He also took place. So therefore, 1739. In fact, it is after this that Nizam he left Delhi permanently, and in 1740 he relocated permanently in Hyderabad, because now there is nothing powerful to gain by staying in Delhi. So better I save my Hyderabad from the Marathas rather than being a wazir in Delhi, or rather being some other high mansabdar in Delhi. So therefore, that is what is happening. It is also during his time period that in 1738 a large Mughal army was defeated by the Marathas. They won, and in 1739 the Marathas, they signed a treaty of Bhopal. Right, the treaty of Bhopal gave them Malwa, for example, right? But that is element part of Marathas. But these are the key things which are taking place during the time period of this thing, right? So then you have Ahmad Shah Bahadur, jo bilkul bhi nahi tha Bahadur, right? Why? Because in 1752 he came under Maratha protection. So therefore, it is during his time period that rise of Marathas, it is getting at a maturity level, at a peak level, right? So Marathas protection in 1752. So these are like key turning point events which are taking place, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. So why did he come under Maratha protection? Because there was fear of Abdalis invasion, Afghani Abdalis invasion. Abdalis invasion, they had begun in 1748 onwards. Right, that is by the time period of Muhammad Shah, Abdali's invasions had begun. Ahmad Shah Abdali was not a successor of Nadir Shah. Nadir Shah was Persian, that is, he was Iranian. Ahmad Shah Abdali was Afghani. However, Ahmad Shah Abdali was a very trusted commander of Nadir Shah. Ahmad Shah Abdali had visited India मतलब कोई tourist visa लगा के नहीं आया. He had visited India on this plunder and on this invasion thing, and he knew how rich India is, right? So therefore, once in 1747 Nadir Shah died, then he was chief minister or governor of Afghanistan. Afghanistan was part of Nadir Shah's empire. Iran plus Afghanistan was the empire of Nadir Shah. So once Nadir Shah died, after that he declared Afghanistan as an independent kingdom. So therefore, he is also known as, Abdali is also known as founder of modern Afghanistan. And from 1748 onwards, he started invading India, right? So his invasions ultimately they conclude in Third Battle of Panipat 1761 also. Anyways, the key element of Ahmad Shah Bahadur is this, right? So that is there. Ahmad Shah Bahadur was killed by Gaddarul Mulk, right? Matlab Imadul Mulk. He also came to be known as Gaddarul Mulk, right? He was one of the what you call as the next generations of Nizam, right? Alamgir too, so he was a puppet of Marathas because he was installed by Marathas. He was a puppet of Marathas, and during his time period, right, he was also killed by Gaddarul Mulk, by the way, right? That is Imadul Mulk, right? So he is not involved, but it is during his time period that 1757 Battle of Plassey is taking place. He has no authority, no control over Bengal, so therefore it is just immaterial, right? So that is what is happening. But Marathas, they are very, very strong at this point of time. And in 1758, for example, Marathas, they 1758-59, Marathas, they established themselves in Lahore. How? Because Raghunath Rao removed Timur Shah, who was son of Abdali, from Lahore, right? So therefore, this is peak of Maratha power. It is being reached around 1758, 1759, right? So that is what is happening. So these are the key events which are taking place during their time period. Then we have Shah Alam II. So therefore, Shah Alam II case mein, so Shah Alam II, it is 1759 to 1806. The key events which are taking place are, for example, Battle of Buxar is taking place in 1764. In fact, he is one of the alliance partners in the Battle of Buxar 1764. Battle of Buxar 1764, Shah Alam II plus Shuja-ud-Dawla, Nawab of Awadh, plus your Mir Qasim, right, versus the East India Company. It ultimately led to kind of mini subordinate alliance with Awadh, right, by East India Company. So that is the key event which is taking place during the time period of Shah Alam II. Then you have 1800 plus third battle of Panipat 1761, that is also there. Akbar II के time पे nothing important as such took place, right? In fact, during the time period of Shah Alam II, second Anglo-Maratha war is also taking place, which we'll take care of later. But अगर हम events अगर देखते हैं तो in 1803 the Marathas they lost control of Delhi. So therefore, Delhi is also coming under indirect rule of the Britishers during Shah Alam II, right? So therefore, it is domination of Awadh, Treaty of Allahabad 1765 plus Diwani of Bengal, Odisha, Bihar, again 1765, that is this particular treaty. Then you have 1803 till 05, you have second Anglo-Maratha war, whereby Delhi, it is coming under control of East India Company. Under control, it is not annexed, but under control of East India Company. So therefore, it is Shah Alam II who in front of him saw rise of East India Company to a very, very important and big power, right? In fact, it is during his time period that the what you call as 1789-92 and 1798-99, the third and the fourth Anglo-Mysore wars are also taking place, right? So therefore, subordinate alliance with Mysore is also being signed during his time period, right? So half of Awadh is annexed in 1801, subordinate alliance of Awadh. Half of Awadh is annexed during his time period, right? Then half was taken as permanent subsidy by the East India Company. In 1801, what you call as the Carnatic was annexed by the East India Company. In 1801, Carnatic is being annexed by the East India Company. In 1805, Travancore signed subordinate alliance with the East India Company, right? Because of the second Anglo-Maratha war, here Scindia, he signed subordinate alliance, right? Just before that guy got, basically the whole point is that the primary rise of the English East India Company was witnessed by which emperor? It is Shah Alam II, right? Although he was later on blinded by someone, right? By a Rohilla, right? Anyways, right? Bahadur Shah Zafar, right? He is famous for the 1857 revolt. So therefore, it was under his leadership that the revolt of 1857 took place. However, sadly for India, the rule of Indians also came to an end with 1858 Government of India Act, right? So therefore, that is the key highlights which are taking place during the time period of these Mughal emperors, right? Reasons for the decline of later Mughals. So what are the reasons for decline of Mughals? Well, primary factor is reason for decline of later Mughals. One element is you can divide it in the form of, for example, if we talk about the like from a prelims perspective, we talk about. So therefore, primary decline, it is a strong leaders, they are not there. Right? As a result, there is a rise of factionalism. How do you define factionalism? Factionalism is royal versus royal, royal versus noble, noble versus noble, right? There are different examples. For example, Jahandar Shah came to power by killing father of Farooq Siyar. Farooq Siyar came to power with the help of Sayyid brothers and killing Jahandar Shah. Then Sayyid brothers, they killed Farooq Siyar when Farooq Siyar wanted to have his own independence, right? And Sayyid brothers, they had an alliance with the Marathas, right? And they installed Muhammad Shah 1719-48 as their puppet. Then Irani group and Turani group under Nizam ul Mulk came together and defeated Sayyid brothers, right? So therefore, this is all factionalism which is taking place. As a result, factionalism leads to neglect of military. Right, so therefore military weakness, it also set in. Then neglect of military, so Mughal state was a military state. Apart from that, there was a fascism also led to fight for mansabs and jagirs. Fight for mansabs and jagirs. which basically led to something called Jagirdari crisis. Jagirdari crisis in return resulted in more factionalism, right? So why there was fight for Mansabs and Jagirs? Because there was very high number of Mansabdars, right? So number of Mansabdars increased. Why? Because the different Mughal emperors they wanted. It is more of a main topic, right? So therefore I'm not going to spend as much amount of time there. इसमें prelims वाले facts आपको relatively कम मिलते हैं. तो ultimately when there is since there are more number of Mansabdars, why more number of Mansabdars were there? Because Mughal emperor was dependent on army on the Mansabdars, so therefore he appointed more and more family members of the present Mansabdars, and as a result number of Mansabdars increased, but the Jagirs are relatively less. So therefore when fight for Jagirs and Mansabs takes place, it is nothing but Jagirdari crisis plus factionalism. Factionalism lead to more neglect of military, right? And all of these things are contributing to decline of Mughals. Second contribution of decline of Mughals is what you call as rise of rebel states. So rebel states are becoming very, very powerful. But the foundation of the decline of Mughals was laid during the time period of Aurangzeb, that is his continuous warfare, right? So it is more of a main topic, right? So fine. Next that we come to is what you call as emergence of regional powers. So regional powers may, for example, the first element that comes in is, so what are regional powers? We should have a basic understanding of regional powers. Regional powers can be divided into three parts. One is successor states, second are rebel states, and third are those who are already autonomous. Already autonomous, the first ones, Rajputs, who were autonomous since the time period of Akbar, 1556 to 1605. Then second is, after Rajputs, you go down south, so fine, you have Mysore. And third that you have is Travancore. Travancore legally was also never part of Mughal Empire, so therefore from the perspective of prelims, it was technically, legally always independent. So therefore a prelims question can be generated. Other at least symbolically accepted Mughal emperor as their emperor. For example, it was Tipu 1782-99 who declared or who tried to declare independence formally from the Mughals, right? Otherwise, this is the scenario. Among the successor states, you have BAH, Bengal, Awadh, Hyderabad. Why they are called successor state? Because they were set up by governors of the family itself. Successor is Uttaradhikari, so therefore there were certain powerful Mansabdars. In the case of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan 1717-27, Sadat Khan 1722-40, Nizam ul Mulk 1724-48. So therefore these three powerful Mansabdars, they acted selfishly and they established their own successor state, right? Rebel states may, you have number one, you have Marathas, then you have Sikh, then you have Jats, then you have Afghans. Afghan kingdoms were two. One is what you call as Rohilkhand, and then you have Farrukhabad. Faridabad nahi hai, Farrukhabad. ठीक? So therefore Marathas, Sikh, Jats, Afghans, right? So therefore this is how the structure is, right? Why they are called rebel states? Because they are established when certain people they rebelled against the Mughals, right? Already autonomous means even when the Mughals were very, very powerful, even then the actual Mughal emperor is not able to say Vachan ye mera shasan, right, to them, right? So therefore that means the laws, the policies, the rules are not made or implemented in these territories by the Mughal emperor. That's why they were already autonomous, right? So this is the broad structure which is there. And if we talk about the individually, if we talk about, so therefore successor states, so they arose as a result of assertion of autonomy. So fine, we have discussed this element, we have discussed. Then next that we have Bengal. So therefore individually if they want to ask about Bengal, so as you know in 1717 it was Murshid Quli Khan who established. What is the key hallmark of Murshid Quli Khan? That he was a brilliant revenue administrator, that he was great at extracting land revenue. He did field surveys. Field survey means doing a survey of the land, what is the productivity of the land, what is the weather conditions, what is the crop which is sown. what is the price which this crop is able to fetch in the market, so that right amount of tax is collected from the common man, right? Tax collection was done by zamindars. 1727 he died, right? And after that his son-in-law Shujauddin came to power, right? He stayed in power until 1738. Then what you call as Sarfaraz Khan, right? He came to power. Sarfaraz Khan, however, was a bad administrator, and he was overthrown by Alivardi Khan. Alivardi Khan was a military commander, right? And his reign was there from 1740 to 1756, right? So AK 56, AK 56, right? So AK 47, 40, AK 4056, that is 1740 to 1756. Right, so therefore, and 1756 to 1757, you have Siraj-ud-Daulah, right? So Battle of Plassey during the time period of Siraj-ud-Daulah is taking place. It is during the time period of Alivardi Khan, that is from 1740 to 1756, that Raghuji Bhosle of Nagpur regularly raided. So regularly raided Bengal, Bihar, Bengal, Odisha, and in 1751 he got control of Odisha and he got Chauth of Bengal and Bihar, right? So therefore Maratha power it is rising, influence is rising over Bengal during the tenure of which person? Alivardi Khan. Also it is said that there was a virtual break between Bengal and Mughal emperor during the time period of Alivardi Khan. That is another hallmark from the perspective of prelims. Why it is said? Because all the earlier governors, they did send tribute to Delhi. It was Alivardi Khan who stopped sending money to Delhi. What was his reason? His reason was that since Raghuji Bhosle of Nagpur is attacking me, plundering me, so I do not have money. I need money to fight the wars. However, later on, when the wars ceased, even then he did not resume sending money to Delhi. Right? So therefore, there was a virtual break during the time period of Alivardi Khan. Otherwise, some kind of link was there between Delhi and Bengal until Alivardi Khan 1740-56, right? So what did the Mughal emperor do then? Mughal emperor was now Shah Alam II, 1759 or 1760 to 1806. So therefore he wanted to attack Bengal and he wanted to set up his own kingdom in Bengal. That's why he was present in Awadh, right? But things, they took turn. Ultimately Mir Qasim also came running from Bengal, and these three people, Nawab of Awadh, Shujauddaulah, Emperor Shah Alam II, Mir Qasim, the ex-Nawab of Bengal, in 1764 they came together and they fought Battle of Buxar with East India Company, right? So therefore these are like linkages which are there, right? And on this basis, right? So specific contributions have been discussed, Murshid Quli Khan and Alivardi Khan ka. Then what are the key characteristics of reign of all of the three Nawabs? So three Nawabs, that is means that is your this thing. हाँ ठीक है वो हो जाएगा सादिक खान ठीक है. So overall अगर देखा जाए, so what are the key characteristics of these things? Key characteristics of three Nawabs who set up a successor states, right? वो हम discuss कर लेंगे, ठीक है? तो anyways, अवध का भी है, तो अवध के केस में it is your सादत खान 2240 1722 to 1740, right? And next major one was what you call as Shuja-ud-Daulah 1754 to 1775. Before that, in between, Safdar was there. Fine, he became Wazir. He also attacked Farrukhabad very repeatedly. Overall, what is the key contribution or key things which are there? So if we talk about the key things, so with respect to the key highlights of all of these states, so first element, if I talk about, let's say, Bengal. So in the case of Bengal, one key highlight is the revenue administration. It is very good, right? Murshid Quli Khan is a brilliant administrator. Second key highlight with respect to Bengal is that because of the good administration, there was a cotton exports. They increased from Bengal. Third element is that East India Company was kept under check by Murshid Quli Khan, by Alivardi Khan also. Fourth element that comes into operation of Bengal is that there is a rise of intermediary zamindars. There is the rise of Jagat Seth, that is bankers, and other merchants. They are also rising. To some extent, the delinquent zamindars, they were punished. To some extent, the ijardars, they are also being promoted in between, right? So this is the key element with respect to Bengal. Similarly, if I talk about Awadh, and मतलब Awadh के केस में भी similar kind of scenario it is, right? Awadh के केस में भी similar kind of scenario it is there, right? Yes, Safdarjung as well as Shuja-ud-Dawla, they were able to become wazirs by having influence over the emperor. In the case of Hyderabad, the key feature which is taking place is that the size of Tankha Jagirs was reduced and Watan Jagirs were, that is, Tankha Jagirs were converted into Watan Jagirs to such an extent that it is a unique feature of Hyderabad. That is, Tankha Jagirs were converted into Watan Jagirs in a very, very big manner. Also, in all of the three cases, but especially in the case of Hyderabad, those who were men of money were made mansabdars. Those who were men of money were made mansabdars. And therefore, the books, they say, and a prelims question can be generated, that it was in Hyderabad that the two key features of Mughal mansabdari system, they kind of like came to an end, right? So therefore, mansabdari system mein most of the Jagirs used to be Tankha Jagirs. They were not Watan Jagirs. Watan Jagirs are hereditary, right? And in the case of this thing, right? So men of money, they were usually not mansabdar. So these are the two key features which are changed with respect to this thing, right? Next that we talk about is rebel states. Hyderabad and Carnatic. So the Carnatic, to begin with, for example, it was part of Hyderabad. So during the time period of Aurangzeb, this Hyderabad was established because Golconda was taken over by Aurangzeb in 1687, right? And after that, this area of Hyderabad, which was earlier Golconda, so इस तरीके से Carnatic, and it was part of one. Later on, Carnatic emerged autonomous from within the Hyderabad area, right? From 1751 to 1762, there was Salabat Jang, and उसको बाद में discuss करेंगे. Now, if we talk about the rebel states, so therefore one of the rebel states was the Sikh. So it was during the time period of. So if you look at the small history, so which becomes the key highlights of this rise of the Sikh. So among the Sikh, for example. So first of all, prelims question: what was the first desire of the with respect to territory, which was the area which was desired by the Sikh gurus as a Sikh state area? It was Anandpur. Anandpur was under the Shivalik hill chiefs. Shivalik hill chiefs, they were friends of the Mughals, right? So therefore, that is how the things are happening. Then in this journey in 1675, Guru Tegh Bahadur, Prime Minister also, Honorable Prime Minister also paid respect to Guru Tegh Bahadur in the recent times. So therefore, it was in 1675 that Guru Tegh Bahadur was executed during the time period of Aurangzeb, 1658 to 1707. After the Guru Tegh Bahadur, it was Guru Gobind Singh Ji, right? So Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was 9th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was the 10th Guru. So during the time period of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the struggle, it continued. In 1699, for example, Khalsa was set up. You can think of it like a NSG of the Sikh, right? Matlab a special commandos of the Sikh, right? So they used to have the 5Ks, which is their identity, and the Khalsa, it led the struggle because Khalsa was dominated by the Jat Sikh and otherwise the gurus used to be from the Khatri clan. So therefore Guru Gobind Singh Ji declared that he is going to be the last guru, and all the authority was vested in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which was installed at Akal Takht, right? So it was from Akal Takht that Hukumnamas etc. they were given, right? Then recently another issue, another thing has been in the current affairs, and that is what you call as Veer Bal Divas, right? So like Veer Bal Divas was is being celebrated, right, on 26th of December, right? It is being celebrated on 26th of December, and the reason is the martyrdom of the sons of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So it was 1704 Battle of Chamkaur, right? 1704 Battle of Chamkaur, where the two elder sons were Ajit Singh, who was 18 years of age, and Jujhar Singh, right, of Jujhar Singh or Jujhar Singh, जैसे बोला, 14 years of age. They became martyrs in this particular Battle of Chamkaur, right? And it is around your Anandapur Sahib that this thing is taking place. Then the two younger sons of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, they were taken, they were captured, and Wazir Khan was the Mughal governor of Sarhind, the territory around that area, and Zorawar Singh, Sahibzade Zorawar Singh, who was aged 9, and Fateh Singh, who was aged 6, they were bricked alive, right, and they refused to convert. So therefore this is being celebrated as Veer Bal Divas, right? So therefore that is 1704 and 1705. These 2 years are there. Later on, once Aurangzeb is gone in 1707, then Bahadur Shah comes. Bahadur Shah from 1707 to 1712, he adopts which policy? Pacifist policy. And therefore in 1707, he agreed to give Anandpur to the Sikh. But later on, in a conspiracy in 1708, Guru Gobind Singh Ji is assassinated, right? Not assassinated, he died because of wounds, right? And that took place in Maharashtra, right? So location is Nanded, Nanded, Maharashtra, right? So he was able to kill his assassins, but later on, because of wounds, he died, right? So therefore this is again, I think Wazir Khan was again the person who was in charge of this conspiracy, right? After Guru Gobind Singh Ji, it was Banda Bahadur, who from 1708 to 1715, he was active, and Banda Bahadur was able to rule an area around Patiala, right? So he was able to establish a small Sikh state in and around Patiala. But ultimately, he was defeated during the time period of which Mughal emperor? 1715 is which Mughal emperor time period? Farooq Siyar, 1713 to 1719. And he is defeated, and then he is executed in Delhi, right? Why he got defeated? Uske 3-4 reasons are there. First reason is lack of support from Khatri traders. Why? Because Khatri traders were offered mansabs by Jahandar Shah and Farooq Siyar. They were also offered a business opportunity of Ijardari system, right? So therefore the first slide, that Ijardari system was introduced in Punjab and Bengal by Jahandar Shah 1712-13. So that contributed to defeat, because Khatri traders, they will stop giving money, and money is required for raising an army and fighting. So therefore that becomes one reason. Also Chura Manjat and some other Hindu Jat zamindars were co-opted by the Mughals. That's why Banda Bahadur lost in 1715, right? And then he is executed in 1716, right? So with respect to executions, we have, for example, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, 1675, right? We have murdered in conspiracy, 1708, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Then we have Banda Bahadur in 1716, right? So therefore that is how it is. And after that there was rule of misls. Misls are kinship based clans. That means no strong center is there. All the power in different areas, they are with these misls. There was a body at the center, its name was Dal Khalsa, right? And the different misl chiefs, they were represented in the Dal Khalsa. And whenever any invasion is going to be there, for example in 1748, when Ahmad Shah Abdali invaded, so therefore under Dal Khalsa, all the misls, they got united and they fought and defeated Ahmad Shah Abdali's invasion, right? Till the point of time, rise of this leader is there in the form of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So Maharaja Ranjit Singh, he is Maharaja from 1801 till 1839. Right? In 1801, he conquered Lahore. Lahore is the capital of undivided Punjab. What was the opportunity? In 1799, from the west, Zaman Shah was successor of Abdali. He did invasion, right? And when he was defeated, lot of territory was conquered by leader of Suker Chakia Misl, Ranjit Singh ji, right? And therefore he became very powerful, and then he subjugated the others. He basically said that either you accept me as Maharaja or fight, right? So therefore this is how he is establishing himself as the king, right? So therefore there are certain, there can be certain events. For example, you can write down just small snippet site में कहीं पे लिख लो. 1808 Jammu from Dogras. 1808 Jammu from Dogras. 1809 whole Punjab. 1809 whole Punjab. Plus Treaty of Amritsar. Plus Treaty of Amritsar. Dash Sutlej equal to border. Sutlej equal to border with EIC. Sutlej equal to border with EIC. Sutlej equal to border with EIC. Plus signed by Charles Metcalfe. Signed by Charles Metcalfe. Signed by Metcalfe, लिख लो, Metcalfe. So Metcalfe was the British ambassador in Delhi. In Delhi, Delhi came under control of the Britishers in which year? 1803. From Sindhias they took. So he is the British resident in Delhi. Delhi is closer to Punjab. So therefore Mr. Metcalfe signed this Treaty of Amritsar in 1809, whereby Sutlej River was decided as the border between the East India Company and the Maharaja Ranjit Singh, which allowed Maharaja Ranjit Singh to do anything, whatever he wants to do on that side of the Sutlej River. East India Company has NOC, no problem, but just do not come on this side of the river, right? So later on, Maharaja Ranjit Singh ji in 1818, 1819 will take over Multan, will take over Kashmir also, right? Will take over Kashmir also from the Afghans. How are the Afghans present in Multan and Kashmir? Third battle of Panipat, 1761 se pehle, these people, they had conquered Lahore, they had conquered Multan, they had reached, they had come to Kashmir also. So therefore now that Kashmir and Multan are being taken over by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, right? So therefore 1818 Multan, 1819 Kashmir is taken over. So therefore this is how the things are there. Apart from that, 1834 Northwest Frontier Province or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, not that important, fine, ऐसे तो बहुत सारा territory है. Important years क्या हो जाते हैं? 1801, 1809, right? They become the more important years which are there, right? Then 1838 there was a treaty between Maharaja Ranjit Singh ji, East India Company, and the ruler of Afghanistan. His name was Shah Shuja, right? Fine, ऐसे बहुत सारे नाम है, it's okay, right? But basically Shah Shuja was now a puppet of East India Company. And why Maharaja Ranjit Singh ji is part of this treaty? To have a no objection NOC of Maharaja Ranjit Singh ji, that he can be our puppet, this kind of scenario. So ultimately the Britishers, they had two buffer states, right? If Russians, they attack in future, so then you have Afghanistan and you have this thing. 1838-42 is also the year of first Anglo-Afghan war, right? Or first Afghan war, where major focus is Russians. So Russians are supporting certain, tribes or certain, ruling elements. They are being defeated there, right? So therefore, that is how the things are happening, right? So, Baki, if you look at the internal part of the thing, so land revenue, 60% of the land was Khalisa lands, right? So therefore, the Maharaja was monetarily very rich. Apart from that, he was culturally very magnanimous. For example, Sahajdari Sikhs Sahajadhari Sikh who do not keep the 5 Ks, right? They became part of the, they were not disturbed, right? They became part of the Sikh identity, or they adopted the Sikh identity properly, right? Properly in the sense that they were also considered as Sikh by the state. Then tolerant attitude was there towards all communities, right? So apart from this, he maintained a balance of power in the Sikh court, right? Which are the important elements? For example, Misl chiefs are there, Khalsa army chiefs are there, Dogras are there of Jammu, right? So Jammu was initially taken over from Dogras in 1808. Then he was magnanimous, so Dogras, they accepted him as Maharaja. He accepted them as dynastic rulers, but under the Sikh Empire, right? So therefore, that kind of scenario it is coming, right? So this is there. Then you have, yeah, he built a very modern military. His military was second best, right? So be it Jats also, Marathas also, Sikh also, all of them, they were open-minded and they were ready to have modernization of their militaries with the help of the Europeans, right? So therefore, that is what is happening, right? So that is what is there. After the break, we'll take up the Marathas because that is going to be slightly more elaborate. Okay? So we'll talk about the Marathas after this. Right, so welcome back. Now we are going to begin with Marathas. So Marathas were rebel state who by 1759 thought that they were ready to establish the All India Empire, right? But then the third battle of Panipat 1761 happened, and therefore they could not fulfill their dreams. Okay, so therefore recently there has been, although it is not exactly in the last 1 year, but there has been change in the flag of the Indian Navy, right? So for example, Marathas, you know, they are called Chhatrapati Shivaji was Chhatrapati, that is, he declared himself as the independent emperor in 1674. He died in 1680. That does not mean that he was not controlling Maharashtra. Maharashtra name is called Swarajya, right? Before 1674, right? So therefore he fought against kingdom of Bijapur, right? And the Aurangzeb to establish the Swarajya. Intermediately, what is the time period of Aurangzeb? 1658 to 1707. So it is a triangular warfare which is taking place. 1685, Aurangzeb has the upper hand. He is able to take over kingdom of Bijapur, right? But the Marathas, they refused to surrender, and Marathas, they continue to fight. And by the time period of 1705, Marathas, they began winning also. And then in the next 50 years or so, they overturn all the gains which have been made by Aurangzeb. That means before his death, he knew that his wars have been futile, right? So therefore, that is the scenario. Now, if we talk about Chhatrapati Shivaji, so therefore he set up a naval force of around 20 ships in 1657, later on 200 ships, right? So एक छोटा छोटा बहुत छोटा छोटा लिख लेंगे, ठीक है, QRM में या फिर जहाँ पे भी आप हो, तो आप लिखें Shivaji dash 200 ships by 1664. Shivaji dash 200 ships by 1664 plus help of French plus forts on coast, common naval bases in Arabian Sea, plus Admiral Kanhoji Angade, in brackets 1700-1729, equal to Shivaji of Seas, So why is called Shivaji of Seas? That brings us to the guerrilla warfare tactics, which was the hallmark of the Marathas, right? Focus on light cavalry on the ground and focus on smaller ships or smaller vessels in the seas. Guerrilla warfare, you attack the enemy and you go back. So therefore, hills and forests, they will serve as hiding grounds in the land. In the water, it will be shallow waters, right? Because the big ships of the British, they cannot enter into the shallow waters, right? So therefore, attack the big ships, run back into the shallow waters. The ships, they will not be able to follow you back, right? So therefore, Shivaji of the seas. So write down dash light vessels, plus attack and go to shallow waters. Attack and go to shallow waters. Attack and go to shallow waters. Versus attack and go to shallow waters versus British, Portuguese, Dutch, Savants, Sawants, Savants, they were a small kingdom, Indian kingdom, Savants, comma Siddhis or Habshis, right? They were African ancestry, Africans on the Konkan coast, at the rate Konkan coast. Plus max 500 ships. Max 500 ships. Plus 1756 British defeated. 1756 British defeated Marathas. 1756 British defeated Marathas. Right? So that's like additional information from the current affairs part, which is not there in the traditional books, right? Then coming back, so therefore Marathas, so Shahuji Maharaj is able to win the civil war with Tarabai by 1719, and therefore the code of Shahuji Maharaj is 1719 to 1749. 1719 to 1749. He is an effective ruler, but it is during his time period that Peshwas, that is prime ministers of the Chhatrapati, right, they became powerful, right? And the council of Shahu was called Ashtapradhan, and one of the minister was Peshwa, that is prime minister. So from 1700, Balaji Vishwanath was there. Balaji Vishwanath. He was 6th Peshwa from 1713 till 1720, right? Then from 1720 till 1740, there was Bajirao. Then 1740 to 1761, there was Balaji Bajirao, or better known as Nana Sahib. From 1761 till 1772, there was Madhav Rao, right? So therefore, during the time period of Balaji Vishwanath, for example, he allied with Sayyid brothers, right? Versus Farooq Siyar, 1713. 19 is the time period of Farooq Siyar. So therefore, it is with the help of the Marathas that Sayyid brothers were able to remove Farooq Siyar, right? And in return, Marathas, they were able to get certain things which they lose. So for example, they were able to get autonomous status. So therefore, he gained autonomous status for the Marathas. Why? Because now Muhammad Shah Rangila is a puppet. So therefore, whatever the Sayyid brothers will ask him to sign, he will sign. Apart from that, he was able to get Chauth of Malwa and Gujarat. Then he was able to get Chauth and Sardesh Mukhi of what you call as Hyderabad. right? 1724 is still not there, so Nizam is still not present there. But Hyderabad or the 6 Mughal provinces of Deccan, right? So therefore there can be question which were the 6 Mughal provinces of Deccan. That is nothing but Hyderabad. ये मराठास का ख्वाब था, KHA right? So it is Khandesh, Hyderabad. Hyderabad, like there can be a Delhi within Delhi, right? So there was a smaller Hyderabad within bigger Hyderabad. Aurangabad, Bidar, Berar, and some territory of Bijapur. Bidar, Berar, Bijapur, because the rest of the Bijapur now has become Swarajya of the Marathas, right? So therefore, KHA. These were the 6 Mughal provinces of Deccan. So therefore, UPSC would want to know that if in the books normally it is written that Marathas, they got Chauth and Sardeshmukhi of 6 Mughal provinces of the Deccan, then which were those 6 Mughal provinces, which student was curious enough? For example, UPSC once asked that everyone knows 4 Northern Sarkars. So which student was curious enough to try to find out that which one of them is one of the 4 Northern Sarkar? UPSC asked a question. Actually, factual questions are also generated on the basis of curiosity, right? So therefore, that's why KHA. अब यहाँ से कोई question आ जाएगा, so you'll say that UPSC is about facts, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. However, all of this is lost. Why? Because Sayyid brothers were defeated by Irani group and Turani group. So therefore, rest of the Peshwas will regain these things later on. Right? Rest of the Peshwas will regain these things later on. Now, there is a question, legitimate question, that what is the meaning of Chauth? What is the meaning of Sardeshmukhi? So Chauth was collected from a foreign state, right? Foreign state from the perspective of Marathas. So you attack and defeat them, and then you take 1/4 of their annual revenue, right? Aisa. Sardeshmukhi is 10% of annual revenue, right? Confusion can be there, and some sources they say that Sardeshmukhi is equal to 10% of Chauth. That is wrong. It is 10% of revenue. So if I have Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, that means I have 25% plus 10%, that is 35% of the revenues of that particular foreign state. Sardeshmukhi can be applied internally also and externally also, right? And Chauth is applied only externally, right? Sardeshmukhi, when applied internally, it is 10% of whatever the Deshmukhs are earning. So they are giving a peshkash to the Chhatrapati that you are our Sardar also, Sardeshmukh, right? But when applied externally, it is simply that the foreign state is accepting that Marathas, you are the bigger power here, so we are paying a 10% tribute from our revenue to you. Okay, so therefore that is Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. They were a tool of foreign policy. How they were a tool of foreign policy? Over a period of time, because of payment of Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, the state will get weakened. Its military will get weakened. So therefore Marathas, they will take over. Can a student see some kind of similarity between subsidy of subordinate alliance and Chauth? Right? It is kind of similar, not exactly the same. Chauth does not lead to removal of military of that particular foreign state. Subsidy leads to removal of military of that particular foreign state. So differences are also there, but both are tools of foreign policy. If subordinate alliance had not been signed by Awadh in 1801, it would not have been easy for the Britishers to annex Awadh in 1856. Right? So there also it is kind of like tool of foreign policy. Here also it is kind of like tool of foreign policy. When you pay subsidy to East India Company gives you protection. When you pay Chauth to the Marathas give you protection. That is the similarity. Difference is what? Marathas will give protection only from themselves. If someone else attacks you, it is choosable for Marathas whether they will protect you or not. Otherwise, in 1757 Battle of Plassey, Bhosle of Nagpur should have fought against the East India Company because he is having Chauth of Bengal and Bihar since 1751. So in 1757, when East India Company does Battle of Plassey, nowhere the name of Marathas is there. Why? It is then clarified that okay, it meant we will not attack you if you pay Chauth. It does not mean that we will protect you from others if you pay Chauth. Right? So therefore, this is how small prelims questions they can be created, that whether payment of Chauth meant Marathas will not attack. Second option, Marathas will protect against others' attack also. Answer is only Marathas will not attack. Historians have also had debate over it, and ultimately it is clarified in 1757 that okay, it did not, it is choosable, it is voluntary for them, right? So the difference between Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, it is there, right? So therefore that is the contribution of Balaji Vishwanath. However, Balaji Vishwanath, he dies in 1720, and then Bajirao or Bajirao, he comes in. Bajirao, he is there from 1720 to 1740, right? So what are the key events which took place during the time period of Bajirao? So therefore during the time period of Bajirao, for example, during the time period of Bajirao, for example, by 1720, most of the expansion took place around this point of time. For example, by 1727-28, Marathas are extracting 60% of revenue from Gujarat. So they are able to defeat the Mughal governor of Gujarat, and they take 60% revenue of Gujarat. That is one of the aspects. Then 1728, they gain Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. They defeat Hyderabad, and they regain Chauth and Sardeshmukhi of Hyderabad. Right, that is being done in 1728. This is also roughly 1727-28. Right, so regaining. Why? Because when Sayyid brothers are defeated, so all the gains are lost. Right. Then 1729, they are able to capture Malwa. 1729, they are able to take over Malwa. Then 1736, they are able to defeat the Portuguese in Konkan coast. Portuguese and Ethiopian Muslims. Ethiopia, it is part of Africa. So they are defeated in Konkan coast, which is proof of a strong navy of the Marathas even in 1736. Kanoji Angde has died in 1729, but still Maratha navy is powerful enough that they are able to take care of the Portuguese. Then 1737, plundered Delhi and kept Muhammad Shah Rangila prisoner for some time. Then 1738, defeated a large army of Mughals. And then in 1739, signed Treaty of Bhopal. Now when they signed the Treaty of Bhopal, so they are able to get what? They are able to get Suba of Malwa. They are able to get Suba of Malwa. So what is the difference? Difference is you capture a territory, but legally it is not yours. The other party who it belongs to legally also accepts that fine, it is yours. Right? So you have a property, but legal papers are not in your name, but now the legal papers are also in your name. Right? So that is Treaty of Bhopal. Plus sovereignty between all lands between river Chambal and Narmada. So lands between river Chambal and Narmada, all of these lands are going to be legally with the Marathas. So it is like this. This is river Chambal, this is river Narmada, and here this is Malwa. Below you have Hyderabad. On the left hand side you have Marathas. Right? So therefore this is Malwa. Right? So therefore that is what is happening. Okay? So these are the major things which take place during the time period of Bajirao 2040. So rise of Marathas is taking place. These are the events which are there. Then in 1740 comes Nana Sahib. So during the time period of Nana Sahib, I have repeated multiple times, it is domination of Bengal. Raghujili Bhosle of Nagpur, although he is not a friend with Nana Sahib, that's why he does not fight in the third battle of Panipat 1761. But this is how the domination is taking place. So therefore Marathas are dominating Bengal Suba. They are getting Chauth of Bengal and Bihar by 1751 in control of Odisha. Right? Plus the major event which takes place during the time period of Peshwa Nana Sahib is another event that takes place is they are able to take over Khandesh in 1751. So these are like small facts. अब ठीक है, इस हर चीज लिखवा तो नहीं सकते, वो है उसमें, ठीक है, but expansion is taking place. The point is that the rise is taking place, right? They attacked Rajputs, but they could not. They interfered in succession. They were able to extract tributes, but they could not conquer the Rajputs, and they could not defeat the Sikh. In 1752, we know that during his time period, that is Balaji Bajirao. During his time period, that is Nana Sahib. The peak of Maratha power is there. In 1752, Mughal emperor is becoming coming under protection of the Ahmad Shah Bahadur, जो बिल्कुल भी नहीं था बहादुर, right? 1748-54 is coming under protection of Marathas, right? It is during this time period that third battle of Panipat, 1761 is taking place. So the key events which are taking place during the time period of Nana Sahib is 1752 Mughal under protection, 1761 third battle of Panipat, and then you have 1751 Khandesh is being taken. So fine, some territory of Hyderabad is being taken over. Right, so these are the key events which are there. Now, if we move towards the third battle of Panipat, so what are the causes of the third battle of Panipat defeat for the Marathas? So causes of defeat are here. First of all, Abdali's forces, they were greater in number. There were 60,000 troops of Ahmad Shah Abdali. Right? Acha, a question can be asked that who fought on whose side? So therefore, who was on the side of Abdali? Abdali was supported by the Afghan kingdoms of Rohilkhand and Farrukhabad. Abdali was supported by Awadh, that is Shujaud-Dawla, right? And on the Indian side, you have Marathas majorly, right? Technically, Mughal emperor can also be said to be on the Maratha side because he is under the protection of the Marathas, right? So therefore, greater number of soldiers are there, better organized, ठीक है, ऐसा हम कह सकते हैं, because ultimately they are victorious, तो कहना ही पड़ेगा. And then better equipped, right? Used swivel guns, right? Swivel guns. What is the speciality about swivel guns? The swivel guns, the bullets are able to pierce the Maratha armor, right? So therefore, that's why they are able to be victorious. Apart from that, near famine conditions prevailed in the Maratha camp. The reason was that if you technically see, then on the right hand side, if you technically see, so for example, if this is Panipat, this is Delhi, then on the right hand side of Delhi, you have what? You have kingdom of Farrukhabad, you have kingdom of Rohilkhand, you have kingdom of Awadh, right? On this side, from this side, you have Ahmad Shah Abdali, right? So therefore, in that particular sense, you are, but it is easy for them. If they are able to do this, then they will be cutting off the road between Panipat and Delhi, right? So therefore, they were able to surround the Maratha camp and they laid a siege. They did not allow any supplies to move from Delhi. And therefore, there was no fodder for the horses and there was no food for the men, right? And that became the major reason on the last day of the battle. Who was leading the Marathas? Sadasiv Rao Bhau, right? Sadasiv Rao Bhau was cousin of Nana Sahib, okay? So he was the leader of the Marathas, and on the last day, they led a last charge that instead of dying of hunger, let us die death of a martyr. So therefore, and we were nearly victorious, but ultimately we lost, right? Another reason was that because of the plunder of the past, right, because of extraction of Chauth, etc., the Marathas are not able to build an alliance with the other Indian powers, right? So therefore, that is one of the reason. Then mutual jealousies of the Maratha commanders, it basically means what? For example, Raghuji Bhosle was not fine or happy with Nana Sahib being the Peshwa because he's factionalism, because he's saying that this is now becoming a dynastic office. So earlier it was not a dynastic office. Balaji Vishnath 1713-20, Bajirao 1720-40, and now 1740 to 1761 Nana Sahib, right? So he was unhappy, so he did not participate. In fact, in 1765, Peshwa attacked Nagpur, right? So therefore, unity was a factor. Political significance of the third battle of Panipat. So therefore, whenever a big power loses, its decline is gradual, right? So therefore, ऐसा नहीं था that Marathas, they are no more the topmost power in India, but the gap between other powers and the Marathas is reduced. That's why in 1770s there is a revival also. In fact, the first Anglo-Maratha war, 1775-82, was won by the Marathas, right? However, big and important leaders, they were dead in the battle. For example, Vishwas Rao, who was son of Nana Sahib, he was being trained to be the next Peshwa. He died. That's why the books they call the next Peshwa, Madhav Rao, as young Madhav Rao. Young, it implies inexperience, right? He was there from 1761 to 1772. So therefore, he was young and he died young, right? Because of some disease, I think it was tuberculosis or something, I'm not sure, right? And then you have from 1772 onwards, you have more factionalism, right? So anyways, 1772 से 1739 Narayan Rao is there. Narayan Rao is removed, killed in a conspiracy which was hatched by Uncle Raghunath Rao, right? So therefore all of this factionalism, it is increasing. That's why we say that death of great Maratha captains opened. Sadasiv Rao Bhau died fighting. Peshwa Nana Sahib did not die in the battle, but he died within weeks of the third battle of Panipat. So Peshwa Nana Sahib is dying, Sadasiv Rao Bhau is dying, Vishwas Rao is dying, and as a result, now factionalism, it is increasing. Raghunath Rao will try to become Peshwa, right? Lowered Maratha prestige in the political world, that is the military power, it is coming down. So therefore the other powers, they can be less afraid of the Marathas. The dream of Marathas to set up an all India empire, it is also coming down, right? It cleared the way for the rise of the British Empire in India, right? So in 1782, the Britishers are defeated in the first Anglo-Maratha war, but majorly the Britishers, they rise after, after that. Okay, na? So that is what is happening. Then Jats and Afghans, they were a very small kingdom, right? But you should not neglect them, because UPSC asked that wherever the UPSC feels that this is a topic which may be neglected, right? So therefore there UPSC asks questions. So for example, the Jat kingdom was established, Jat kingdom of Bharatpur was there. It was established by Churaman Jat. Churaman Jat was a zamidar, right? And what was the reason? Reason for rebelling was high land revenue, oppression of the Ijaradars. So therefore it was the first kingdom which was established with the help of the people, right? The people rebelled, right? So it was a peasant revolt led by Churaman Jat that resulted in establishment of the Jat kingdom. So therefore the reason element is also kind of like important. Maharaja Surajmal was there. Maharaja Surajmal, for some time he fought on the side of Marathas in the third battle of Panipat, but later on some dispute was there with the Marathas, because of which he withdrew, right? So therefore that is there. But after his death, again, this is what happens when you do not have a written constitution, when you do not have institutions, systems, they become personality oriented, right? So be it the Mughals, be it the Marathas, be it the Jats, or be it the Sikh after Maharaja Ranjit Singh, 1839, when unki death hui, that strong personalities, if they are not there, then factionalism will increase and decline will take place, right? Because personality dependent systems are there, right? Regarding Afghans, so therefore Bangash Pathans, they set up Farrukhabad, and Ali Muhammad Khan set up Rohilkhand, right? So UPSC has already asked a question with respect to the years of formation. So therefore 1714 Farrukhabad was set up, if you want to write down, right? It was a small kingdom on the east of Delhi. Muhammad Khan Bangash, 1714 Farrukhabad, Muhammad Khan Bangash, Muhammad Khan Bangash. 1737-38 Rohilkhand, 1737-38 Rohilkhand. Ali MD Khan, Ali Muhammad Khan, Ali Muhammad Khan. What is the intelligent aspect here? Should we simply rote learn? If you look at the years, so the 1714, look what is happening in the Mughal Empire. Just now in 1713, Farrukh Siyar has come to power after killing Jandar Shah. That means the center is shaking because of factionalism, right? Similarly in 1738, what is happening? 1737, plunder by Marathas. 1738, a large Mughal army defeated by Marathas. 1738-40, 1739, Battle of Karnal. So therefore, when the Mughal emperor is weak, it is time for the rebel states to rebel and set up their stronghold, right? So therefore, this is how, yes, rote learning is there, but if you apply some analysis part to it, it may become slightly easy, right? So weakness of the Mughal is opportunity for the others, right? So therefore that is what is happening. Both of them, they supported Ahmad Shah Abdali in third battle of Panipat. However, once Abdali left, because Abdali was also strongly wounded in terms of number of soldiers lost, etc. And from Afghanistan, he got a news that some of the military generals are trying to take over. So therefore, obviously, home is more important than the foreign territory. So therefore, he ran back. That's how Delhi came under the control of Rohilla Afghans. from 1761 till 1771. In 1771, Sindhya ji, Mahdi ji Sindhya took over Delhi. Lost to the East India Company in which year? 1803. Right. So history of Delhi, 1752, under control of Marathas. Why? Because Mughal Emperor under Maratha protection. 1761 under control of Rohillas. Why? Because third battle of Panipat. 1770s revival of Marathas. Mahdi Sindhya 1771 took over Delhi. Lost in Second Anglo-Maratha War 1803-05 to East India Company. Right? So therefore this is how the different topics are slightly interlinked. Right? So therefore that's how interlinkages are very important. Then Rajputs from our syllabus perspective, that is modern history perspective, they are not important because the time period is pre-modern. The time period is medieval, right? However, Rajputs, they were very powerful. Akbar could not defeat them, so therefore Akbar was, he co-opted them and he gave them important mansabs, recognized the whole of Rajputana as Vatan Jagirs of the important Rajput kings, right? And Rajputs, they had a strong influence. They formed the Hindu group of mansabdars in Delhi. During the time period of Aurangzeb, conflict was there between Marwad plus Mewad versus Aurangzeb, right? Why the conflict was there? This small y can be considered important. यहाँ पे mention नहीं है, but ठीक है. उसमें in Marwad stay along a trade route from Delhi to Ahmedabad, and there was a child ruler by chance because of death of king in Marwad, right? So you can remember it like this child ruler issue, Marwad. Yes, Aurangzeb interfered in succession, and that was obviously not tolerated by the Marwad. Mewad had territorial ambitions. It wanted to become the single ruler of whole of Rajputana. So Mewad and Marwad, they joined forces. However, they are not supported by other Rajput kings because they feel that if Mewad is victorious, then tomorrow maybe their own existence will come under threat, right? So therefore this dispute took place. They are not able to defeat Aurangzeb because Aurangzeb is powerful, but Rajputana still stays with the Rajputs. So it is kind of like a stalemate, we can say. This happened in 1680-81. It's okay, right? So that is what is there. Baki primarily later on with decline of Mughals. So Raja Savai Jai Singh of Amer, he set up Jaipur, Jai Singh Jaipur. So therefore he became a powerful entity in Delhi politics, right? So founded a city of Jaipur and made it a great seat of science and art, was a great astronomer and erected observatories with accurate and advanced instruments, right? And other things like geometry, etc., right? So therefore that is what he is doing. Then you have other principalities that is already autonomous. So in the case of already autonomous, Mysore was part of Vijayanagar Empire. Vijayanagar Empire, that is 1336 to 1646, Vijayanagar Empire was there. And like successor states emerged autonomous from within the Mughal Empire, similarly Mysore had emerged autonomous from within the Vijayanagar Empire, right? And Chikkadevaraja Vodiyar, he was the primary ruler, important ruler. He was there from 1672 to 1704. ठीक है, मुझे भी ऐसा एकदम से याद नहीं होता है, मैं भी थोड़ा थोड़ा रेफर कर रहा हूँ, राइट? सो देयरफॉर दोज हु आर फीलिंग कि इतने सारे फैक्ट्स, राइट, रिविजन इज रिक्वायर्ड, राइट? रफ आइडिया शुड बी देयर दैट ओके, around 1700s, around the time period when Aurangzeb is strong, around that time period Chikkadevaraja Vodiyar is also strong. That gives us the reason or the logic that why Mysore is a already autonomous state, because A, distance from Delhi is very far away. You're able to reach Golconda in 1687, Bijapur, आपके हिसाब से बीजापुर 1685, Golconda, that is Hyderabad 1687, Mysore is below, where a strong ruler is there, so it will not be easy. So therefore by default, yes, logic is there that Mysore will be a already autonomous state. Why? Because a strong ruler is present in a far away territory, right? However, from our syllabus perspective, it is Hyder Ali. Hyder Ali was a military commander, and in 1761 he overthrew the Prime Minister Nanjaraj. right? Nanjaraj had, like Sayyid brothers, had converted Farooq Siyar into a puppet, like Sayyid brothers had converted Muhammad Shah Rangila as a puppet in 1719. Later on, Muhammad Shah Rangila was puppet of Nizam from 1720 onwards. So therefore, similarly, whenever strong personalities they go away, whenever weak personalities they come in, so therefore, those who are next in line, that is those who are prime ministers, those who are these, they are able to gain power, right? So therefore, Nanjaraj and Devraj, they had seized power. Hyder Ali, he was military commander. He overthrew Nanjaraj and he established his authority. Right? Hyder Ali ruled till 1782, and then his son Tipu, 1782 to 1799, he was present. Right? Tipu died in the fourth Anglo-Mysore War, defending his capital Srirangapatnam, and therefore these are the rulers. If you look at the specific contributions, then with respect to specific contributions, what is the key highlight of Hyder Ali? Hyder Ali 1761 to 1782. The key highlight is first with respect to army. So therefore, army was modernized with the help of French. Right? So therefore, the king is there, Risalas are present, Risala 1, Risala 2, and so on and so forth, under the proper hierarchy is there, right? Each is a mini army that is totally Atmanirbhar, right? Self-sufficient army. So therefore, very fast moving army, very swift moving army was created with the help of the French. Apart from this, he fought a civil war against Polygars. Polygars were landed magnates. They had their own lands. Polygars, they had their own armies, and they were autonomous since the time period of Vijayanagar Empire. And continuously for 20 years, this civil war was there. Ultimately, Hyder Ali was able to subjugate the Polygars. Why? Because he wanted to centralize power, right? So focus was on centralization of power. Then, when he died, so during his time period, territorial expansion also took place. Malabar was taken over from Travancore in 1766. This also led to the first war, that is from 1767 to 69 or 66 to 69. First Anglo-Mysore war took place. Why? Because Travancore is a coastal area. This is Malabar. This is Malabar. So therefore, coastal area. The Britishers, they had friendly terms with Travancore. They did not have friendly terms with Mysore. So therefore, coastal area coming under Mysore is going to hurt the trade interest of East India Company. So therefore, first war was triggered because Hyder Ali took over Malabar, right, which is north of Travancore. Earlier it was part of Travancore, right. So that is the key highlight during time period of Hyder Ali. Then what is the key highlight of Tipu, 1782 to 1799? Anyone wants to participate? Remove middleman. So one aspect is, key highlight is land revenue system. Hanji. Second, yes. Independence from the Mughal, that is legally tried to be independent by seeking a sanad from Khalifa of Ottoman Empire. Anyone else? Yeah, he did field surveys, so therefore land were decided on the basis of field surveys. Right, international trade, overseas, coin is part of independent, coins in his own name, khutbah in his own name, Friday prayers, international trade, set of factories in and outside Mysore, even in Muscat, Oman, right? So therefore tomorrow if UPSC asks a question that where the factories were set up outside of India, so therefore that can be one of the aspects, right? Marathas also traded with China, right? So which of the traded outside? Anything else?
Sir, new measurement techniques.
New measurement techniques, right? So therefore, ये कहाँ से आवाज आई? बड़ी तगड़ी आवाज आई. New measurement techniques, right? Anything else in the domain of agriculture, sericulture? Well, not agriculture exactly, but Sericulture, right? So therefore, that is the key highlight. So in the land revenue system, basically IRS officers, we are going to collect the tax, right? That is what is being said. So therefore, zamidars, deshmukhs, you are not going to keep your commissions. Salaries are very, very less. So therefore, I am going to take away the profits of the middleman, and the state is going to be more rich, right? Plus, why introduce sericulture? So the state can be more rich. Why? Because if the people will be rich, only then the taxes will be high, right? He built canals also. Why? If the people are rich, then the state will be rich. International trade, well, not just happy with custom duties, I want the profit of the trade, right? So therefore, this resulted in what you call as animosity with the East India Company, right? And all of these policies, they are called as military fiscalism. Also, he was another thing which no one mentioned, another important thing which is missing with respect to Tipu. He was a Jacobin, नहीं Jacobin होता है, ठीक, ठीक, Jacobin, right? He was a weird kind of a Jacobin, by the way. He was Napoleon kind of Jacobin, right? Napoleon took established dictatorship, but himself called himself Emperor of French Republic, right? So therefore, that means yes, believed in rise like France, but without democracy, right? So therefore, that is, he was in touch with Napoleon, and he wanted to have an alliance with the French against the East India Company. By the way, that was used by Wellesley to end the ban on conquest and start the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, right? So therefore, this is known as military fiscalism. Fiscal policy, any policy other than the monetary policy in the domain of economics, it is called fiscal policy. So therefore, all of this is fiscal policy. Why are you doing it? Because the state wants to have money for having a strong military. After that, what you are going to do? After that, I am going to dominate whole of South India territorially. Now that leads to animosity with neighbors. Neighbors in the form of Marathas, neighbors in the form of Travancore, neighbors in the form of Hyderabad, right? So therefore, East India Company is also enemy, and they are also enemy. East India Company because of trade, because Tipu Sultan said that I am not going to allow the English East India Company to do trade from those areas where I am present. I will have the trade profits. Why should East India Company have the trade profits, right? So therefore, this is how the things are taking shape. Okay, so these are the key aspects of Tipu, and they are going to result in what you call as Anglo-Mysore wars also. Hanji. Yes.
Sir, this setting up of overseas factories and trade centers by Tipu, can it be compared with the initial levels of colonialism by European powers, and if not, why?
Initial levels of
colonialism by Europeans. Can it be compared with?
Can it be compared with? Well, yeah, it is.
Obviously, they could not lead it to conclusion and climax because of internal tussle.
Whether international trade will lead to subjugation of the foreign territories, that is unknown, right? So whether he did that with the, it is not written in the books that Tipu did that with the intent of colonizing Middle East, right, or colonizing Africa. Later on, had that happened, maybe like the Britishers also did not come to India for the purposes of colonialism, but they ended up being a colonial power. So later on, how the things will pan out, that is a question mark. Possibility is there, but books, they do not mention that the intent of Mysore was to establish colonies outside. Okay, so he set up a public PSU. He set up a PSU for doing this particular trade, right? So so these are the specific contributions which are there. Then Travancore. So Travancore, what is the key highlight? Where did we, by 1669, Cochin was established as the main base by the Dutch. It was Martanda Varma, 1729-58, who in 1741 removed the Dutch from Cochin, right? That means it is a proof that Travancore had an awesome navy, right? That Travancore must have modernized its military, right? So therefore Travancore was powerful. The Dutch were ousted from the region, and English were made to accept his terms of trade. That is, you're not going to do any misuse of dastaks like you're doing in, by the way, dastaks are not applicable on Travancore because Travancore was legally not part of Mughal Empire. Therefore, Royal Farman of 1717 is not applicable on Travancore, right? He undertook many of the things like there in Mysore, similarly here in the case of Swarajya also, the things that we discussed as part of Mysore, right? Field surveys and all of these things, they are present in Swarajya also, by the way, right? Many of the books, they do not cover the internal administration of Marathas, right? But some books, they do cover the internal administration. There also good things were there. For example, regarding Marathas, it is said that their police system was as good as London police, right? Canals were built for the licenses were given for cutting off woods for fuel, etc. So, and also for drugs matlab medicines, right? So anyways, all of those things, they are similarly applicable to all of these successor states, right? And rebel states and others, already autonomous, right? So irrigation work, built roads and canals, gave active encouragement to foreign trade. Under Martanda Varma's successor Rama Varma, it became a capital of center of scholarship and art. Scholarship means if you have talent, then fine, you don't need to work for your physical sustenance. The state will give you some kind of money so that you are able to contribute to the culture of the society. But it is during his time period, that 1766, who attacks? Hyder Ali, right? And he takes over Malabar. That's why it is said that during the time period of Rama Varma, it did become center of scholarship and art, but also it got militarily weakened, right? And during his time period, from 1758 to 1798, Rama Varma was there, and during his time period, Malabar is being lost to Hyder Ali, right? In his death towards the closing years of the 18th century, the region lost its former glory and soon succumbed to the British pressure, accepting a British resident in 1800. Subordinate alliance was signed by Travancore in which year? 1805, right? So therefore, that's how these states are covered. Next that we have is rise of East India Company, right? So they are broadly, although it is the domain of analytics, but yes, at times in prelims, UPSC asks the question related on analytics. So therefore, small thing it is there. East India Company, was it formed for the purpose, when it was formed on 31st of December 1600. Was it formed for the purpose of empire building? Answer is no. Why it was formed? To do trade, to counter the Dutch competition, right? But still, wars were fought, right? So therefore, why wars were fought by East India Company? So broadly, very simply, two reasons are there. One are for trade, right? Second, it is for what you call as empire building. Empire building, right? Within the trade, two kind of wars are fought. A, to protect the trade profits, or to expand the trade profits, right? For example, in 1620, when Portuguese, they attacked the Britishers, that is the English East India Company, because Thomas Roe is able to extract a very good farman. So therefore, after that, can we classify that battle as to protect the trade profits? And in 1612, when in Surat, right, they are defeating the Portuguese. So can we say that was to expand the trade profits? Similarly, for empire building, well, company was not formed for empire building. Here, whenever people like Clive are there, whenever people like Wellesley are there, whenever people like Hastings is there, Hastings 1813 to 1813 to 23, Wellesley from 1798 to 1805, right? Clive from 1757 to 1760, and then 1765 to 67. And you have Dalhousie, who is there from 1748 to 1848 to 1856. So therefore, when such empire builder are governors or governor general, and India is very, very far off away, plus the money it is available, with the East India Company, that is, the East India Company is not facing shortage of money, then these people, they are going to fight wars for the purposes of empire building. So broadly, all the wars, they can be classified in this particular manner. For example, the French, they attacked the Britishers in the First Carnatic War. So therefore, where should I classify the First Carnatic War, 1746-48? It will be here, to protect the trade profits. Again, the Second Carnatic War, 1749 to 1754. Dupleix is trying to interfere in the succession disputes of Hyderabad and Carnatic. And if Dupleix is successful, then Dupleix will be able to extract such good, profits or, legal terms, legal privileges from Hyderabad and Carnatic, that the rulers, they may say that East India Company, you get out from India, right? So therefore again, second Carnatic War will be falling here, right? So therefore the first Carnatic War, the second Carnatic War will be fought, will be on the basis of this, right? To expand, for example, in 1757, when Battle of Plassey is taking place, right? Robert Clive was simply going back from Bengal to Carnatic. He was stopped by Mir Jafar. कि कहाँ जा रहे हो? इसको हटा के जाओ. That is, please remove Mr. Sirajuddaula. Right? We will give you this much amount of money. We will give you this much amount of profits, etc. Right? So therefore, 1757. Similarly, the Battle of Buxar. They are not the ones in 1764. They are not the ones who have attacked Awadh. The alliance of Shujauddaulah, that is your Mir Qasim, and your Shah Alam too. They are the ones who come together and they attack East India Company in Bengal. So therefore, that will be war which will be present here, right? Aisa. So similarly, the first Mysore War, Anglo-Mysore War. Why? Because Malabar was taken over by Hyder Ali in 1766. Again, to protect the trade profits, they are doing this. Right? So therefore, different wars, they can be classified under these three heads. This is how, if you make your own notes, right, then there can be some method to the whole madness, and it becomes easier to remember the wars, right? So therefore, this is how UPSC can generate some questions also if they want to. But yes, all of these elements, they are present, right? So first element is Anglo-French struggle for supremacy, right? That is Britain versus France. So reasons for rivalry between the French and the British, core reason is very, very simple. Both the British as well as the French, they want to dominate the international trade of India, right? So international trade of India was dominated by the Portuguese from 1510, you can say, until your 1620 or 1612. Then it is dominated by the Britishers, comes under challenge by the French from late 1600. 1674, Pondicherry became the center of the French, right? So therefore, what is the reason that they are able to fight? First, decline of Mughal Empire, right? Why decline of Mughal Empire is a reason? For example, in the first Carnatic, for example, in the third Carnatic War, right? Or let's say the Battle of Plassey 1757. The Britishers, they were not confident that the Nawab of Bengal will be able to protect them if the French attacked. The point is that we have to, you are French, I am British. The ruler of India, if we know, will not be able to protect me. If you attack me, then I have to handle you myself, right? So therefore, that is the reason. That is the reason. That is lack of faith in the Indian rulers that they will be able to protect me if my adversary attacks me, right? And that is why, that is, by the way, proven by which war? Battle of Adyar. Battle of Adyar takes place in 1746. It takes place as part of First Carnatic War. We'll get there. But there are 700 French trained sepoys. They are able to defeat 10,000 cavalry of the Carnatic. Right? So therefore, that's why from 1746 onwards, you notice that Hyder Ali 1761, it is after 1746, right? Marathas, right? After 1746, similarly Jats, after 1746, they all take help of British or the French, right? Especially the French, because British are the counterparty to modernize their militaries. Why? Because of Battle of Adyar. And naval power has already been proven earlier, right? So therefore, that is why the Indian rulers try to take help of these Europeans to beat the other party in succession dispute or to beat the other party in any interstate war, right? So that is what is happening here. Reduce competition and gain monopolistic control, that is for trade, protect their trade interest from Marathas, well, that is the condition for the British, right? Maximize profits, right? So for example, if we talk about, let's say, the first Carnatic War, right? So what was the reason for the first Carnatic War? Reason for the first Carnatic War was that the Britishers and the French, out of these three wars, two wars are fought because the international war is taking place. 1740-48, some books they say 40-48, I personally say 1746-48, both sources are there. But this is the time period of Austrian War of Succession. In Austria, who should be the next ruler has become a point of war or a cause of war between Britain and France. And when they fought not just in Europe, they fought everywhere. They fought in Americas also, and they fought in India also. In India, the war came to be known as the First Carnatic War. right? So therefore that becomes the main reason for the conflict. In the case of the Third Carnatic War, these years 1756-63 are the years of 7-year global war, right? So because they are fighting globally, that's why they fight in Americas also, they fight in India also, they fight in Africa also, right? So therefore out of the 3 wars, 2 were result of foreign interference or foreign international war. That can be a point in any prelims question, right, with respect to reasons, right? What were the reasons for Anglo-Carnatic wars or Anglo-French wars in Carnatic, right? And 3-4 options are created. So world history will form a thing. With respect to the Second Carnatic War, reason was A, ambitions of Dupleix. Dupleix wanted his favorite Chanda Sahib to be the Nawab of Carnatic and his favorite Muzaffar Jung to be the Nawab of Hyderabad or Nizam of Hyderabad. If that happens, what will happen to the British trade interest? So therefore the Britishers, they supported the opposite party. They supported Muhammad Ali in Carnatic and they supported Nasir Jung in Hyderabad. How to remember? Muhammad Ali Jinnah, pro-British. Right? Chanda Sahib, Chanda, Moon, Chanda Re, kabhi to zami par pa. बैठेंगे बातें करेंगे. Chanda, Chanda, Moon. Moon, sign of romance. Romance, which is the romantic capital of the world? Paris. Paris is where? France. Obviously, France will support Chanda. I think only because of the name itself, Dupleix would have supported Chanda Sahib. Right? So therefore, as a cricket mein, there used to be a British captain, Nasir Hussain. Right? So Nasir Jung, British, opposite Muzaffar Jung, so fine. Muzaffar Jung, Muzaffar, France, Muzaffar, France. Muzaffar, France. तो France will support Muzaffar Jung. ये तो मैंने अभी बनाया. This is बिल्कुल total fresh, है ना? Muzaffar Jung, है ना? France, right? So therefore, you whenever this rote learning things etc. they come, try to find some fun elements. So therefore, memorization will become slightly easy, right? Prelims question can be created on this also, that who supported who, that is one of the element. So therefore war of succession in Hyderabad and Carnatic became the reason for the Second Carnatic War. There was no issue between Carnatic and the French or the British. Why they are called Carnatic wars? Because the territory in which they are fought, they are Carnatic, right? So therefore all the wars that took place in the territory of Carnatic, right? What was the course of the war? So French governor Dupleix, right? Dupleix 1742 to 1754. He was the Governor General of French East India Company in India, 1742 to 1754. He captured Madras, that is he captured Fort St. George. After that the agreement was that this will be returned to the Nawab of Carnatic, and then because Nawab of Carnatic is the ruler, he will decide what will happen. But Dupleix was ambitious, right? He was an empire builder like Clive, like Wellesley, so he did not give it. So therefore that resulted in Carnatic taking a stern action against Dupleix. That resulted in Battle of Adyar, where 10,000 horse riders, they are defeated by 700 French trained infantry. Infantry defeating horse riders, right? So therefore that was very, very new. However, ultimately, when the Austrian War of Succession ended, so therefore there was Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, right? Imagine that LXX is your dog, and you have trained him in fetching your chapel, right? Chapel, right? And your Aix-la-Chapelle, right? So Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, right? So Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle was signed in 1748, right? And as a result, what happened? For the French, always remember, for the French, Americas were as important as for the British, India was important, right? Why? Because in South America, they used to have plantation systems, sugar plantation systems, right? So the thing which I really love is with the British, and thing which the British really love is with me. So therefore, as part of the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, status quo was re-established, so nothing is changing. Right? However, so what is the net result of this war? The net result of this war is the Indian powers are coming to know that European infantry is awesome. Right? 1746. That's why the Indian powers, they take French help or British help also at times. So therefore that is what is happening. Second Carnatic War, War of Succession is there. Course of the war. So basically in the first phase the French are victorious. Right? And in the second phase, the British are victorious. So once in the first phase, the French are victorious, so therefore they are able to have Nadad Sarkars from Hyderabad in 1751. Then they are also able to station a French ambassador in the Hyderabad court. They are able to station a French military in Hyderabad for protection of Nizam, which is to be paid for by Hyderabad. That is, it is kind of like a subsidiary alliance. That's why it is said that the real origin of subordinate alliance policy was Dupleix. Right? Dupleix in Carnatic, he declared himself as Nawab of all lands between River Krishna and Cape Comorin. That means he is in a way declaring himself as Nawab of Carnatic with Chanda Sahib as his deputy. Obviously, they got Jagirs also. Right? So therefore, but then the Britishers, they bounced back with the help of Robert Clive. Right? Robert Clive was a born Gunda. Right? So in Britain also, right, he was like that. So these things, they suit him. Right? As I tell him in the class, Robert Clive, he used to do hafta collection. Right? Some of you have not attended my class, right? For them, this will be new, right? He used to do hafta collection, okay, right? And from the shops, and near the shop there was a drain. So the shopkeeper said, "I will not give you money." So he laid down on the drain so that the dirty water hits his body, and then the water enters into the shop. Filthy water. Why? Because the shopkeeper has not given you hafta. So that was Robert Clive, real story, mentioned in the book Anarchy, real story, right? So such a person is sent as a writer or a clerk in the East India Company. But see, that is destiny. He was not meant to be on the table. As soon as the Carnatic Wars broke out, right, so the Britishers, they had very less soldiers with them. So like, who can fight? Robert Clive like, I can. Right? So therefore, see, destiny. He had to become the richest man of Europe one day. So therefore, destiny. He tried to commit suicide while coming to India. Right? He tried to commit suicide, multiple times. Like in our UPSC preparation, we don't get success at times in first attempt. He also got success in third attempt or fourth attempt. Ultimately, he died by suicide. He was so full of violence that either he committed violence on others or he committed violence on himself. That is what William Dalrymple says in the book Anarchy. Right, so therefore that's the kind of situation which is there. Right, so anyways, so Robert Clive comes back and obviously he defeats, right, he is good commander and all. Right, so ultimately result is also 50-50. That is in Hyderabad, the French are going to have influence. They will, they are going to have influence. They are going to have their agent. They are going to have Nadan Sarkars. In Carnatic, however, Muhammad Ali will be the ruler, who is a friend of the British. So therefore result is also 50-50, Hyderabad French influence and Carnatic British influence, right? So two phases and this. Third Carnatic War, total victory for the British, defeated the French in the 7-year global war, defeat the French everywhere, defeat them in Americas, defeat them in Africa, defeat them in India, right? Battle of Wandiwash, 1760, French were washed away. Right? Battle of Wandiwash, 1760, French were washed away even from Pondicherry. Right? So therefore that is what is there. Yes, Count de Lally, right? He was the French commander, French Royal Military's commander. Iri Coote was British Royal Military commander. Because whenever the first and the third wars are taking place, it is not just the companies who are fighting against each other, but also their royal militaries. Royal military means government military. Right? Reason for loss are broad. Reason for loss is overall, see, a lot of world history is connected. If you look at reasons for loss or ultimately why the Britishers are able to be victorious. So always remember, for the, money is very, very important for fighting wars. So therefore, see, Britishers are doing trade since when? Since 1600, right? So they have huge amount of trade profits with them. Trade money, right? They have. Second point, for example, industrial revolution was done by the British from 1750 to 1850. So therefore you see, but at least in the third Carnatic War, their industrialization has slightly begun, right? Plus another thing, capitalism is first to develop in Britain, whereas it is late to develop. In France, it developed only from 1789 onwards. Right? A student can have a doubt, but sir, these are companies who are there for trade profits. So how do you say that capitalism was not there in France? When do you say that capitalism is there in a country? Capitalism is there in a country. अरे आपको पता चल गया, मैं आपको बोलने वाला था कि मेरे लिए चाय भिजवा दो. Thank you. Capitalism. When do you get to know that capitalism is there in a country? Traders are there also. Traders are here also. Sugar plantation systems are there also. Simply, when a significant number of percentage of your population is driven by profit motive, right? Limited number of people doing trade, that is not capitalism en masse, right? If you want to see capitalism, as I say in the classes also, wake up at 4 a.m. and look out of the balcony. There are people, right, who are traveling at 4 a.m., right, at 5 a.m., at 6 a.m., at 7 a.m. So there is traffic jam, right? So where are all of these people going with such madness, even in winters, right? Where are they going? Where are they going? Right? Because either to who knows, even Ambanis may be waking up at 4 a.m. Right? You are wondering, if God gives me this much amount of money, I'll never work. Right? But that person is waking up at 4 a.m. Right? Why? What is the reason? Driven by profit motive. And how do you define GDP? Value of goods and services produced in an annual year. Who actually produces goods and services? The people. Right? So therefore, if a significant percentage of the people are driven by the profit motive, it is then that you see that capitalism has arrived. And it is then actually that the GDP rises like anything, right? So therefore, that is what is there. So that's why GDP of India also has improved a lot after 1991, because we went for liberalization, privatization, globalization. So capitalism was there, and therefore GDP was much better. This particular person, Count de Lally, he was rude, right? Plus the soldiers, they were not getting salary since many times. So therefore, nationalism is also not there in France. So why should a soldier die? And especially, why should an Indian sepoy die? Right, salary you are not giving, and तमीज से बात भी नहीं कर रहे हो, you're talking to us rudely, right? So why should I die? So morale of the French army was very down. They became the reasons for the defeat ultimately, right? So that is what is happening. So all of this is written here, the reasons for the loss, right? If you talk about the Anglo-Maratha War, right, which is there from 1775 to 1782. So first reason becomes that, what is the reason for the war? So what is the reason for the first Anglo-Maratha War? Reason for the first Anglo-Maratha War is factionalism. How? Factionalism. Because Raghunath Rao, right, he was the Peshwa from 1773 to 1774. He was overthrown in Barbhai conspiracy of Nana Fadnavis. Nana Fadnavis took revenge of death of Narayan Rao, the previous Peshwa, who was killed in a conspiracy by Uncle Raghunath Rao. After that, what happened? Mr. Raghunath Rao went to the Britishers in Bombay, and with Governor of Bombay signed a Treaty of Surat 1775. Right? And once this Treaty of Surat 1775 was there, then promise was that I will give you Salsatte and Vasai, and you will help me become Peshwa. So therefore, Treaty of Surat became the reason. Right? Here, the key feature was Battle of, what you call as Treaty of Vadgaon was there, whereby they were able to, the Britishers were defeated, right? So therefore, in Vadgaon, the Marathas were victorious. Marathas won, right? And this is taking place in 1779. But the Britishers, they refused to surrender. Therefore, the war continued. Ultimately, in 1782, there was Treaty of Salbai, which resulted in a military alliance. The Britishers, they got Salsatte, and some books they say Vasai, some books they say Bharuch or Baroch, right? And third, the French, they will not be allowed any position by the Marathas. The Britishers, they are going to accept Madhav Rao II as Peshwa, right? So Madhav Rao II was there from 1775 till 1795, right? They are going to accept him as Peshwa, and the Marathas, they got some of their territories back, so fine, right? So therefore, Treaty of Salbai, it is there. What is the impact for the East India Company? What is the larger picture? Larger picture is that this basically led to Marathas now fighting along with East India Company and Hyderabad versus Mysore. In which war? In second Mysore War, which was there from 1780 to 1784. Right? So therefore, look at the East India Company diplomacy, that they never wanted to fight the Indian forces together. Right? When they were fighting the Indian forces together, they very soon settled their disputes with Hyderabad and with Marathas, so that they are not fighting the Indian powers collectively. They always fought the Indian powers one by one by one. Right? So therefore, this is the major factual information which is there with respect to these treaties. Then what is the reason for the Second Anglo-Maratha War? So before the Second Anglo-Maratha War in 1802, because of succession dispute, the Gaikwad of Baroda, he signed subordinate alliance. The reason was factionalism. It is not part of the war, right? It is separate. The war will happen now. Now factionalism is rising after Third Battle of Panipat. So what is the reason? Reason is factionalism. How? So basically, here, because of some internal disputes, the Peshwa is Bajirao II, right? From 1796 to 1818. He killed Holkar. Stepbrother of Holkar, Yashwantrao Holkar, took revenge. Defeated Peshwa. Removed him from Pune. Also defeated Sindhya, who supported Peshwa. Now, father Raghunath Rao, Bajirao II, also went to the Britishers. The Britishers, a vulture is present in the form of Wellesley. Wellesley says, sign subordinate alliance and I will help you, right? So therefore, here again factionalism happened. So basically, Peshwa Bajirao II, right? He signed SA, signed subordinate alliance. Why? Because he wanted to regain Peshwaship. How he was removed? He was removed by Holkar of Indore, right? To regain Peshwaship, right? And therefore, this triggered the war. In the war, what is the important event which happened? So therefore, the Britishers were victorious. Yes, he regained Peshwaship, but apart from that, Sindhya was also made to sign subordinate alliance. Sindhya also lost territory, right? All territory north of Jamuna was lost. Some territory in Gujarat was also lost. North of Jamuna, for example, Delhi in 1803, Delhi is under control of East India Company. They established their indirect rule, right? Plus, since those who were earlier paying tributes to the Marathas, they were also made to sign subordinate alliance. Example, Jats, Bundelas, then you had Rohillas, Rajputs. So therefore, these powers, they are also subordinated. Why? Because now I am the bigger power here. So therefore, earlier you were paying Chaut Sardeshmukhi to Marathas. Now you pay subsidy to me, right? So therefore, this is how. This is a big important. It is one of the most important war for the for the rise of East India Company. The third war happened. What was the reason for it? The reason for it is, you can give a personality reason also, that you have a vulture in the form of Wellesley. So he is an empire builder. Here also a vulture is present. His name is Mr. Hastings. He is there from 1813 to 1823. He is the Governor General of Bengal. Pura bole to, not Governor General of India, right? When was the first Governor General of India? 1833. Through which act? Charter Act of 1833, है ना? उससे पहले Governor General of Bengal. What is technically fully correct? Governor General of Bengal Presidency of East India Company. Otherwise, Governor of Bengal in 1757. Who is Governor of Bengal? In 1757, who is the Governor of Bengal? Mr. Sirajuddaulah just before death, or Mr. Robert Clive. Who? है ना? Governor of Bengal, है ना? Governor of Bengal Suba of Mughal Empire. That is Sirajuddaulah. Governor of Bengal Presidency of East India Company. That is Robert Clive. है ना? So technically full. Okay? ऐसा. Anyways, so Hastings is GG Bengal, right? That is Governor General of Bengal Presidency of East India Company. Right? He is an empire builder. That is one aspect. Plus factionalism. factionalism nahi, plus here desire for independence actually. So we know that Peshwa has signed subordinate alliance and therefore he is a puppet, right? And therefore he wanted to regain influence, right? So therefore Peshwa Bajirao too wanted, does not want to be puppet. I will not be puppet, that is his desire. Plus Marathas are also, high war expenditure has happened here. So therefore the Britishers, they told don't interfere in Indian political affairs. So therefore policy of non-interference was followed after Wellesley. Wellesley was there from 1798 to 1805. So therefore in these, what you call as 7-8 years, the Marathas are able to regain military confidence. Which Marathas? Gaikwad has been subordinated, Peshwa has been subordinated, Sindhya has been subordinated. So which Marathas? Bhosle of Nagpur and Holkar of Indore. So they felt militarily confident, right? So therefore Bhosle of Nagpur and Holkar of Indore, they felt militarily powerful, right? Militarily regained, right? So therefore that is why, so therefore they start the war. What is the net result? So now annexation is taking place of Swarajya or Maharashtra, plus subordinate alliance is being signed with Holkar also and with Bhosle also, right? And they lose significant territory also, right? So therefore this is how the Maratha Sardars are subordinated, but Swarajya is also annexed, right? So therefore that is what is happening, right? So that is what is there. Next that you have is let's say Anglo-Mysore wars. So in the case of Anglo-Mysore wars, again the same scenario it is there. Okay, we have broadly already discussed the reasons part of it. I'm thinking of skipping ahead of it to save time, but the point is the first Anglo-Mysore war, what is the reason? The core reason is the Britishers, they do not want that their trade interests they should be hurt. So therefore when Hyder Ali takes over Malabar in 1766 from Travancore, the Britishers they come to assist Travancore. In this war, who is victorious? Mysore is victorious. But ultimately, there is a status quo. In fact, it is said that a military alliance was also set up. But that military alliance was not respected by East India Company, right? The second Anglo-Mysore War, 1780-84, right? So here, what is the reason? So reason here is that, so one reason was that Hyderabad was angry because Guntur had been taken over. Guntur had been taken over by East India Company without the consent, right? Apart from this, 1780 Marathas, they are already fighting what you call as the first Anglo-Maratha wars, right? So therefore now an alliance is built. This situation is deemed right by Hyder Ali that an alliance can be built, right? And Hyder Ali was also unhappy because of taking over of Guntur, and another reason was there, just one second. Yeah, Mysore was unhappy with the East India Company because of capture of Guntur and because EIC did not come to help of Mysore when Marathas attacked in 1771 despite a military alliance since 1769. So broadly, it was seen as an opportunity that East India Company, it can be, there can be an alliance against the East India Company, right? So therefore, that is what is being done. So that becomes the reason for this war. The net result of this war is again status quo. Interesting aspect is in UPSC, one can ask that there was a alliance from 1780 till 1782. This was such a time period that Indian powers, that is Hyderabad, Mysore and Marathas, they fought against East India Company. And East India Company diplomacy with Marathas, they signed Treaty of Salbai. They gave back Guntur to Hyderabad, and therefore then Hyderabad and Marathas from 1782 till 1784, it was Hyderabad plus EIC plus Marathas versus what you call as versus Mysore, right? So this is what is happening. Another reason was Tipu. So Tipu came to power in 1782, right? And Tipu was super ambitious territorially. He could not be trusted by Marathas the way his father could be trusted. It was Nana Fadnis who had signed this alliance, right, so with Hyder Ali, right? So therefore, these two people were the first ones to understand that East India Company is not just a company; it is here for empire building, right? So that is what is there. Third Anglo-Mysore War. What is the reason? Reason is again now Tipu is saying that East India Company, you are not going to trade in the territory where I am the boss, right? Plus, he also attacked Travancore. So therefore, East India Company got really worried, right? So therefore, this war began. Again, in this war, East India Company is supported by Hyderabad and Marathas. In this, what is the net result? So nearly half of territory it is lost by Mysore. Right? In the fourth war, what is the reason? One reason is Mr. Wellesley. Fourth war was there from 1798 to 1799. He is an empire builder. He said that Mysore is doing friendship with Napoleon, and there was no real fear. UPSC has asked a question. UPSC has asked a question that which one of the following is correct with respect to reasons of this particular war. There was no real fear, but that does not mean that there was no fear. Right? So therefore that one aspect, one option was correct. So anyways, Mysore and Napoleon, they were trying to come together. In 1798, Napoleon had attacked Egypt also. So fear was there that Napoleon will come from Egypt to Arabian Sea to India, and these two together. So Wellesley overhyped this particular fear. War began. Again, East India Company plus Marathas plus Hyderabad, significant territory is lost by Mysore. Plus Vodiyars, they are brought back to power. Tipu died defending his capital Seringapatanam, and subordinate alliance is also signed with Mysore. Right? So therefore this is how the wars are. Name of the treaties are there. Okay, it has been, the name of the treaties are present, right? So for example, in the case of the second Mysore war, it was Treaty of Mangalore, Treaty of Seringapatanam, right? And then lastly, third one was also, I think, Treaty of Seringapatanam only, right? So two treaties of Seringapatanam were there, right? So that is how it is. Next that we have is administration under the, right? So what is the key highlight of this? अरे 15 मिनट तोड़ लूंगा, 5 दिन में कैसे वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री खत्म करूंगा यार, थोड़ा सा 15 मिनट तो दे दो. वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री कह रहा हूं, देखो कितना ब्रेन फॉग हो गया. एक्ट समझ लेते हैं, ठीक है, सिंपल है. देखिए, when you try to do learning of these acts, try to have two categories. The first is East India Company versus the British state. That is one element, right? And second is centralization of power, that is center-state relations within India, right? These are the two aspects which are there. Right? So in the case of, and what is the broad structure, right? One small structure. This is what is being created. You have a Governor General in India, right? You have this Governor General is going to be in Council of 4 and 3, that's okay. There is going to be Governor of Bombay, there is going to be Governor of Madras, right? He is going to be the boss of Governors of Bombay and Madras, right? And he is going to do reporting. He is going to send all information. Information can be of two nature. One nature is business information, that is civil, military and revenue matters. Second information is commercial information, that is related to trade of East India Company. This information will be sent to who? To the court of directors of East India Company. And East India Company will be sending information only on civil, military and revenue matters, not on commercial matters. To who? To the British state, right? So therefore ultimately that is the structure which is being created, right? So let us do it in a story format, right? तो स्टोरी फॉर्मेट में करते हैं, बिकॉज वो जो डेटा वेटा है वो तो आपके पास है. सो बेसिकली व्हाट इज द आइडिया इज दैट हॉलमार्क, you have to remember the hallmark. So the hallmark of the Regulating Act 1773 is supervision of East India Company by the British state. Why? Because of the Great Bengal Famine of 1770, where 1 crore Indians died, there was huge shortage of money with the East India Company. Because the land revenue income from the land revenue income is declining, also trade income is declining, right? So therefore the East India Company is under stress, right? So therefore, East India Company came into a default mode and it applied for a loan to the British state. East India Company is very, very important for the British state. Why? Because if East India Company stops doing business, then there will be hyperinflation in Britain. Because all the goods from East, who is bringing to Britain? East India Company. If there is no East India Company, then tomorrow when the markets will open, so therefore there will be huge amount of shortage of goods, right? So therefore, the loan is given. But since taxpayer money it is given, so therefore the British state wants to regulate the East India Company. Second aspect is from 1765, what has begun? American Revolution has begun, right? American War of Independence will begin in 1776, but at least Satyagraha has begun in 13 colonies in North America. So therefore, the Britishers are worried that this should not happen in India. So therefore, we need to have some kind of supervision over the East India Company, right? So therefore, in this particular case, they want to regulate. How to regulate? Well, whenever the class teacher wanted to regulate the class, she appointed a class monitor. So therefore, they want a class monitor in India. The class is India, they want a class monitor in India. So therefore, where are you a ruler? East India Company is now having two functions. One is it is doing business, and second, it is doing administration. So the state does not have any problem that East India Company is doing business. State has a problem that East India Company has got military, East India Company has become a ruler, and it has entered into the domain of the state, right? So therefore, that's why only in the domain of civil, military and revenue matters they want to supervise the state. So that's why they make this one person GG. Now where is the Britishers ruler right now? In 1773 it is only Bengal where they are the rulers. In 1772 they had established direct government in Bengal. So therefore, who should they make? Governor General. They will make him the Governor General. Another is that 60% of the trade used to happen from Bengal. So therefore, from that perspective also, among the three governors, he is the most important governor. So he is made. Second thing is that he is subordinating. He can give them orders in matters of war and peace. Right? Not in other matters, but in the matters of war and peace. That is, who is the final decision-making authority? Governor General. Right? That is why when 1775 Treaty of Surat is signed by Governor of Bombay, then the Britishers tried to negotiate Treaty of Purandar to end the war. Why? Because Governor General was not happy that the Governor of Bombay has started a war. Final decision is going to be with GG Bengal, right? However, that Treaty of Purandar 1776 could not be finally negotiated because Raghunath Rao was still given safety by Governor of Bombay. So therefore, Nana Fadnavis also gave French a port, therefore breaking the terms of the treaty, and therefore the war continued till 1782. Anyways, right? So they are subordinated in matters of war and peace. Why? Because taxpayer money has been given. Taxpayer money has been given as a loan to the East India Company in 1772. So therefore, the company should not waste this money in war. That's why I want accountability with someone, right? Accountability comes with power. Accountability comes with power, right? By default, we assume that district magistrate is powerful. Therefore, we only talk about accountability. But without power, there cannot be any accountability. Because this person can say, I don't have any supervision over them, I can't order them, so therefore how am I responsible, right? So therefore in matters of war and peace, GG is the boss now. So therefore rise of a center is taking place in British India. He will transmit, although he is put in a council of 4, that is 4 councillors, and on the top of them the GG. Why? What if a person like Wellesley becomes the Governor General? So therefore he will to do even more wars, right? So therefore a council of 4 councillor it is created. He will be sending information on civil, military, revenue and commerce matters to the COD of East India Company that will be submitting this information. So therefore this is how a regulation it is established. They are troubled with corruption also. So some features are there that you cannot take gifts from Indians, right? No corruption should be there. Apart from this, a Supreme Court is also set up in Calcutta. This court is no Supreme Court. This court is very simple. It is of the British, for the British, by the British. That is, they simply want that those who are Britishers and those who are there in India, they should not be tried as per the Hindu law. They should not be tried as per the Islamic law. They should be tried as per the, what you call as per the British law, right? So therefore, that's how these things are being done, right? So therefore, they become the key feature of the regulating act, right? That is the main thing which is there, right? So that is the aspect. Second aspect is what? Second aspect is after this comes the Judicature Act of 1781. This is very, very simple actually, because there was a dispute. Actually in 1772, the Governor General of Bengal and his council members, they took over judiciary of Bengal, right? Now, if there is a court case which involves a British officer and the case is arising out of action done while on duty. So Governor General wanted to be the final decision maker with respect to his officer's action. And he did not want the decision to be with Supreme Court at Calcutta. So there was a dispute between the two. 1781 Act resolved this dispute by clarifying the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. So therefore this act said that the Supreme Court in Calcutta is going to have following jurisdiction. Any case which takes place in Calcutta, any case, be it even Indian versus Indian case, that case will be heard by the Supreme Court in Calcutta. Second, they say any case where a British is present and a personal matter is there of British officer. Right? So personal matters of the British officers, they will be there dealt by the Supreme Court. Any case which is related to any British non-officer person, right? That will also be non-officer person. That case will also be heard by the Supreme Court. And any case related to EIC property. For example, East India Company purchases some goods from Indian merchant does not give the goods but take the money or something like this is taking place. So then who will hear the case? Supreme Court in Calcutta. That means where a British officer has acted on duty, that case will be dealt by Governor General. That is the key principle of this. So this is a court which is of the British, for the British and by the British. What is the key aspect of Pitt's India Act 1784? The key aspect of Pitt's India Act 1784 is basically 1783 United States of America is created. So now the Britishers, they do not want to lose India at all, right? So therefore, why this Pitt's India Act is called Pitt's India Act? Because Prime Minister is William Pitt, and this time they establish this structure. The structure is going to be this, that for example, the Court of Directors was earlier sending information. Look at the level of control that now the Court of Directors will be sending exact incoming and outgoing letter to India, right? For example, if you are having a friend, right? So your call comes waiting, right? One is supervision, right? The other, your friend asks, who are you talking to? What? Tell me the summary of the conversation. You tell and supervision is done. Controlling is, show me the call log. I want to see exactly how many minutes you talked. Show me the WhatsApp message, right? So therefore look at the level of control that all incoming and outgoing letters, they are going to be shared with a new body called Board of Control. This Board of Control, think of it like a Ministry of India. So therefore that is the one thing that they do. Second thing, who can declare independence in India? It can be the Governor General or Commander-in-Chief. So second thing that they do is that the principal servants of the East India Company can be appointed only after approval of the Crown. That means, because they are worried now that US has declared independence. So therefore Governor General, Governors, Commander-in-Chief, these people, they can be appointed by East India Company, but only after approval of Crown. Crown means British state. This is how they are establishing control. Only after approval of Crown. That means these people are going to be more loyal to the British state and less loyal to the East India Company because they got their job because of the Crown, right? Cornwallis, who is Governor General from 1786 to 93, was actually the leader of the British Army, Royal Army, in American War of Independence, 1776-83. So therefore these people who can declare independence, they are going to be right-hand man person of the state, so that they do not declare. Plus, apart from this, this Board of Control can pass binding orders. Board of Control can pass binding orders to Court of Directors. Court of Directors can obviously pass binding orders to Governor General. Governor General can pass orders to Governors of Bombay and Governors of Madras. Plus, this Board of Control can pass binding orders directly to Governor General of Bengal also. This is called dual control of Governor General because he has two bosses. He can get orders from Court of Directors also in London. He can get orders also from Board of Control in London. This is called dual control of Governor General. And now who is the, this is also called what I call as double government of EIC affairs. EIC had two affairs. EIC had two affairs. One was private affair, one was public affair. Interestingly, private affair began earlier. Public affair began later, right? So this kind of scenario it is there. So who is the top boss in the private affairs? See, in the private affairs, the hierarchy is like this. You have Court of Directors, and this is the hierarchy. This is Governor General, these are other governors. In commercial matters, the governors of Bombay and Madras, they don't have to take any order from Governor General. Right? That structure was created only for political matters. Here, the Board of Control is there, then COD is there, and then this is GG, and these are governors. This structure it is there, right? So therefore, who is the top boss in commercial matters? Company. Who is the top boss in political matters or civil military revenue matters or public matters or ruling matters? Board of Control. Board of Control is nothing but state. So therefore, it is known as double government of EIC affairs in India. That is two affairs, two top bosses. So UPSC can confuse you with respect to dual government, with respect to dual government of Bengal, Treaty of Allahabad 1765. There also you did the same. This is Diwani, this is Nijamat. Diwani, top boss, East India Company. Nijamat, top boss, state. That is Nawab of Bengal. That is called dual government of Bengal affairs. This is dual government of EIC affairs. Dual control is vertical concept that I have two bosses. Right? So therefore, that is how control it is being established by the state over the East India Company in India. Right? Esa. This is what is being done. Smaller things are also there that for the first time this thing is said that territorial possessions. Charter Act of 1793 renewed the company charter for 20 years. Apart from that, the hallmark of Charter 1793 is that in this what you call as concept of civil law is brought. Right? Concept of civil law means all the laws for governing Bengal are to be written at one place. Judges, they have to follow it, and judges, they have to pass written orders, and these laws should also be converted to vernaculars so that the common man is able to understand the laws. That is one of. So this is not very significant or very important kind of a act. In Pitt's India Act 1784, the act says British territorial possessions, but does not clarify that here territory of India is of which British. Because East India Company is also British and British state is also British. In 1793 charter, they clarify that no citizen of the crown, no company of Britain, no citizen of Britain can acquire territory abroad on its own behalf. It can acquire territory only on behalf of the state. So therefore, it was clarified that British India is not a private property of East India Company, it is of the British state. This is how they are asserting their control. Charter Act of 1813, its hallmark is westernization. Right? So now westernize the Indian economy. Westernization means what? Make the economy of India like the West, culture of India like the West, polity of India like the West, education of India like the West. So therefore, in the Charter Act of 1813, for example, economy, East India Company is a trader. How can a trader set up what Elon Musk can do? Do you think a trader can do? Trader simply purchases goods from one place, sells it at another place, right? So therefore, if you have to do industrialization of India, because IR has 60% complete na, 1750 to 1850. So you have to do industrialization of India. So therefore, there have to be FDI by manufacturers. But there is monopoly of East India Company over business with India. So therefore, that is why, because the lobbying power also of the British manufacturers was increasing. So monopoly of East India Company over trade with India was ended. However, monopoly over tea trade, opium trade and China trade was kept. Why is important? Why? Because no more the British national interest is served by moving finished goods from India. As Britishers are developing machines, they don't want finished goods from India. They want Indians to buy British finished goods, which are made by manufacturers, which can be brought into India by East India Company. But why to give East India Company any cut? Plus now they want raw materials from India. Right? So British national interest does not desire that there should be monopoly of East India Company over business with India. That is the intelligent point here. That's why they end the monopoly. And lobbying power is there. Earlier only East India Company was rich, but now manufacturers are also rich. Right? And बाकी तो आप जानते ही हो, ठीक? Right? Political funding and etc. Parliamentarians. Christian missionaries. There are some people called evangelists. Their idea was, if you really want to modernize India, just Christianize India. Right? Everything is because of God. Right? So therefore, now Christian missionaries' entry into India was made legal. Earlier also they could be present, but they were not here for spread of Christianity. They were here only for giving private services to the British officers. Right? But now they can spread Christianity. They can take license from either court of directors or also from board of control. Right? So westernization of Indian culture. You have to spend what you call as 1 lakh rupees per annum on education, because culture comes from here. Right? So therefore, gradually this push to Western education will also be there. So therefore, westernization became the hallmark of this. Again, they reiterated in 1813. Koi doubt mat rakhna. Keep no doubt that sovereignty over British India is of British state, not of company. Right? So therefore, 1784 they said this territory is of British. 1793 they said no subject of the crown can acquire territory on its own behalf but only on behalf of crown. अब भी किसी को doubt रहेगा तो कहते हैं undoubted sovereignty. Right? So therefore, this is how the British state is eating East India Company step by step. Charter is renewed for 20 years, no problem. Charter Act of 1833. Its hallmark, it is called, UPSC asked this question 1 year back or 2 years back. It is called landmark in constitutional history of India. Why? Because now for the first time there is going to be a prime minister. That means now there is going to be Governor General of India. What do you mean by governor? Governor means ruler. So earlier everyone was ruler of Bengal, ruler of Madras. There was no ruler of British India. But now there is going to be ruler of British India. That means single legislative. Now Governor General of India can make laws for whole of India himself. Earlier he could give directions, but now he himself can make laws. He himself can take executive decisions for whole of British India. Right? So therefore, one nation, one British India, one law, one executive. This system is established in India. In fact, law-making powers of governors of Bombay and Madras are taken away. Right? So therefore, federalism died dog's death in 1833. Right? Federalism means center-state relations, state powerful, equally powerful. So therefore, law-making power is taken away. It is given back only in 1861. Right? So it is peak of centralization. Why this was done? Because these British businesses who came from 1813 onwards, they complained. They said that when we do business in one part, different law is there. When we do business in another part, different law is there. Right? So therefore, as the territory expanded, as a feature of good governance, they wanted one British India, one law. In fact, they added a law member. His name was Thomas Macaulay in Governor General of India's Council. And they set up a law commission under him. And his job was to make one British India, one law. So he started fresh writing of laws. That work was completed by 1837. Right? And these were to be West-like laws, not based on Hindu law or Islamic law. These were to be West-like laws, because westernization of India has begun in 1813 itself. Right? However, updation continued. Ultimately, after 1857, they brought IPC, CPC, CRPC. Right? So therefore, your CRPC came in 1861, IPC came in 1860, CPC came in 1859. Right? So these are codes or laws which are brought. So therefore, that is the thing. So therefore, that is it is also said that grain of separation of power began. Why? Because he was a law member. That is, his job is to make laws. So separate legislature, separate executive, separate judiciary. So therefore, grain of separation of power. That is just one person, but not properly. So like that is the hallmark of Charter of 1833. Right? It is under this Macaulay that in 1835, Macaulay's Minute on Education will come, which will promote Western education in English language. Right? So therefore, that is what is being done by the Charter. So what is the hallmark of Charter 1833? Governor General of India, right? Assam. Charter of 1853, here charter is not renewed for 20 years, but it is renewed only till the time British Parliament wants. That means now sword is hanging on the neck of East India Company, right? That's why. अच्छा, इसमें स्मॉल चीज एक और है 1833 में ट्रेड मोनोपोली ऑफ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ओवर ओपियम, टी एंड चाइना इज आल्सो टेकन, राइट? In 1800, that means from 1833, the company is just what? Company is not a company. Company can't do business after 1833. Company is told that you will not do business, right? So who are you? I'm just a manager, political manager, right? I will only handle civil, military, and matters on your behalf. So company stopped doing business in 1833. Okay. 1853, charter is not renewed, sword is hanging on the neck. Plus, exam is introduced, our UPSC exam. That means now company loses patronage also. What is one of the important power of the company? You open a private company, you say, kal se job pe aa jana. From tomorrow, come on job. Now East India Company cannot say this. Imagine Reliance cannot appoint his own employees. Imagine government of India says that Reliance and other big companies only there will be a common exam. है ना? Private sector का मोह हो जाएगा उस दिन. That UPS, that government of India says that there will be a common exam, right? And only to promote meritocracy, only those who qualify this exam, only they will be allowed to appear for job interview by private companies. So therefore that is what is done. So therefore you see it is like East India Company is being पहले East India Company का, you know, you are cutting one hand, then another hand, then gala. That's why I say 1857 revolt was just a bahana. East India Company's rule was any which way on the path to end. Right, they are taking away its monopoly, then they are taking away its rest of the monopoly. You will not be a company anymore. Your charter will not be renewed anymore. Right. So therefore, 1853 में patronage is also taken away. 1853 में civil services are opened to Indians. 1833 में uncovenanted civil services and judiciary was open to Indians. यहाँ पे senior civil services, that is covenanted civil services, and ठीक है, they are open to Indians. Charter is not renewed. 1857 revolt happens, then comes Government of India Act 1858. Rest will begin with this police administration, etc. in the next class.